audio test.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the March 26, 2024 Board of Education meeting. Call to order of this regular meeting. With us this evening is Mr. Krasnoff, Mr. Lee, Mrs. Flynn, Mrs. Guernsey, and myself, Mrs. Jacobson. Mr. Asa is with us this evening on WebEx, Mrs. Maxon Kennelly, Mr. Peterson, Mrs. Rinaldi, and Superintendent Mr. Testani, as well as our students here this evening. If you could all rise and join us with the Pledge of Allegiance. And Mrs. Rinaldi, you want to start us? Thank you. Okay, kicking off this evening, we have our student reports. Welcome, students. Nice to see you here. And in whatever order you guys would like to go in.
So,
Hi, how are you guys today? We have some pretty exciting stuff happening. Mostly April break. That's what I'm looking forward to and looking backwards to, and really all that I'm thinking about. As you can see, we're really representing the vibe today of what the mentality, I think, for every parent and every teenager in the county of Fairfield is right now. Firstly, we have the FBLA. The Connecticut Championship Chapter Award was presented to Fairfield Ludlow High School for achieving chapter status in the Spring Leadership Conference in 2024. The Business Leaders of America, that's very exciting. I know that the people that participate, they put a lot of effort, a lot of time, and a lot of dedication into making it awesome. So congratulations to them. We also have the Battle of the Houses coming, where the best house is going to win Webster. I know I'm slightly clairvoyant. I've already decided the results prior to the event, but I guarantee you that's going to be what's going to happen. We were robbed the past few years, and I'll let my partner tell you the rest.
Go Warner House.
just to clarify, Right House will be winning this year. We're pretty good. So we had the Chick-fil-A fundraiser today for the junior class today. This is for, the prom. We have been running low on funds because no one wants to attend the dances. So, I don't know, maybe it's like a school spirit thing. We'll have to check that out. And then for the juniors, we also have the SAT coming up on April 1st. It's going to be exciting for me. For Agatha, doesn't have to do it anymore. And then we have the solar eclipse event on April 8th, which if any students registered, they can, I think, it's during lunch, right? Yeah, it's during lunch, and we're wearing glasses. We're going out in the field. We're going to look at this really cool solar eclipse. And I think that's it.
Good evening. Nice to see all of you guys again. A few exciting things have been happening at Ward, so I'd love to catch you guys up. So as we all know, our winter sport athletes are here today, which is so exciting. Congratulations to all of the winter athletes from both Ward and Ludlow. We are extremely proud of all the achievements and all the hard work you put into your season. So big shout out to them.
All of this week, Ward will be sponsoring and facilitating Wellness Week. Each day brings a different theme. Activities include movies in the library, arts and crafts, presentations, and more. This week is dedicated to promoting the overall well-being of students, teachers, and staff. Classes can sign up for a series of activities focused on creating and uplifting a supportive environment.
So Ward, we are very creative. We love coming up with new fun ways to get everyone involved. So we have Rochambeau Day coming up, which is Thursday, March 28th. We will be having a school-wide rock, paper, scissors tournament, and the top winners not only get points for themselves, but also for our houses. So it's like a mini house battle. So go Townsend. We'll be bringing that one home, hopefully. Yeah, super exciting.
I'm sorry, my partner misspoke. Go Pequot. We will be winning. We will be bringing back the Battle of the Houses trophy. Tomorrow, Wednesday, March 27th, all AP American Studies students will be joining us in the auditorium to see a presentation by Mr. Alex Kershaw. He's a renowned journalist, public speaker, and an author of a best-selling World War II books. We'd like to thank our wonderful teacher, Mrs. Murphy, for organizing this event.
So the past month has been insanely hectic for Ward DECA. We went to the state conference with over 30 members. Last year when I started, we only had 10. And now walking in with 30, it was just the best feeling. And we had over 15 ICTC qualifying. So that means 15 of our students qualified for internationals. We had startup business plans. We had entrepreneurship series, marketing series. All these kids have grown remarkably. It's awesome to see. And I want to say thank you to all of our advisors and our sponsors. We just had a garden catering night. We have Rico's coming up. So if you're craving a pizza next Friday, come down to Rico's and help support Ward DECA.
All right, as for music, we can't forget about our music programs. Earlier this month, we enjoyed concerts from our orchestra and band programs, as well as our chorus program, who performed in the town-wide music festival recently. And now what most juniors have been waiting for, the SAT exams. They will take place next Wednesday. We'd like to wish all juniors taking the SAT exam good luck. We know it's not quite Battle of the Houses. Our Battle of the Houses is actually, I believe, April 25th, right after spring break. After Ludlow's battle, but we saved the best for last.
Today is a really important Board of Ed meeting, especially for our seniors, seeing that we might have our graduation date planned, which is very exciting, hopefully, fingers crossed. Not only do we have graduation to look forward to, we also have our amazing seniors with all their commitments. I would like to announce that I have committed to Loyola, Maryland, so that's very exciting. Thank you. So as this year comes to a close, it's bittersweet for us, class of 24. I'm excited for graduation. I'm excited to see where all my peers are attending. It's really an amazing time right now. So thank you.
Thank you, and go Ward.
Good evening. Yesterday at Walter Fitz, our students and staff held a women's empowerment tea, kind of a brunch. We invited community members who help our school and students. Our guests include women from the Fairfield Foundation of Education, Mill River Wetland Committee, Operation Hope, the Center for Family Justice, the Fairfield Police Department, Fairfield Pollinator Pathway Program, Workplace, Habitat for Humanity, Sacred Heart University, UConn, CTC Grant, former state representative Laura Devlin, our first select woman, and many more. And we are also fortunate to have our superintendent, Mr. Testani, attend. Students engaged in conversations with our guests and enjoyed lunch and dessert, which were donated by Stop and Shop, The Pantry, Sorrento's, Hanson's Florist, and many more. Guests entered our school to one of our really talented students playing the cello. Another student painted a canvas with the guest names and a Women's History Month sign. And guests were given a gift bag of soap made with honey from our bees and honeycomb and from our bees. So yeah.
Last week, students began their Mill River and Long Island Sound research project. 4 GPS flotation devices were sent down Mill River from 4 locations and tracked. The goal of the devices is to track how pollution will move through Mill River and eventually get to Southport Beach and Long Island Sound. 4 more GPS flotation devices were sent out today by students. I was there. Very interesting. The footage will be out towards the end of the year. Students also use new technology to take videos and pictures and keep logs of progress and changes we are making to their research. 2 new beehives and bees are being delivered next week by former state representative Laura Devlin. She has offered to help the school while we search for a new mentor. Students continue plant and water our flowers and edible plants in our 2 greenhouses. We will plant in our 2 gardens around Mother's Day, including a new pumpkin patch. Caitlin Carnati, our school district assistive technology specialist met with students at Walter Fitz today to discuss technology and a grant we are going to apply for together. She had a great conversation with the students about how they currently use technology and skills for post-secondary skills for resumes. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much for your reports, everybody. Does anybody have any questions for our students tonight? No? Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much for coming tonight, sharing your stories. Good luck with those taking SATs, and have fun on spring break and on Battle of the Houses and all the fun activities that are coming up. So go Ward, Ludlow, and Walter Fitz all at the same time. Thanks, guys. Okay, this is the point where we will take public comment for anyone who would like to wish to make comment on any of our agenda items this evening. There's also opportunity later on if you so choose. So if anyone would like to make public comment, you can come forward now. No? Okay. Moving on to our recognition of excellence this evening, our student athletes and Team FCAC and SEAC champions, Mr. Parnes and Ms. Giacomo, sorry, if I ruined that, Giacomo, sorry. So our 2 ADs, welcome. Thank you guys. So excited to see you.
It's good to
Thank
see
you for having us tonight. I'll take over from here. We're always competing, as you can see, but we work very well together. But thank you for having us tonight, and especially thank you to Mr. Chestani for your continued support and the entire Board of Education for your support in athletics as well. We certainly would not be able to have all these accomplishments throughout the winter without that support, so thank you very much. First up, do you want to announce fencing? I'll let Gina talk now.
Thank you. I was going to say it's nice to see the spirit of competition is alive, even with the school speakers. Yes, so we're going to start tonight with our combined co-op teams, which are a nice way to start. That's our Ward, Ludlow, and Walter Fitzgerald combined teams. We're going to start off with our fencing team with Coach O'Brien. He has 2 of his 4 foilers, and they're first one, so they have to set the stage. So Jack's going to speak quickly, but the fencing team won the CHSFA, which is the Connecticut High School Fencing Association Boys Foil State Championship this year.
Okay, the first athlete I want to announce is you go. No, I have an order. The first athlete I want to announce is Aran Chandramahan. Ron is a junior this year. He was our front man. We relied on him a lot to pick up wins in his bouts and like for our squad. And he did that in spades. Aran went undefeated in the regular season this year, as well as finished 5th in the state in individual state championships, earning him the title of All-State. And during team state championships, he was a really, really important part of our team. So, Aran. Next is James Geckler. James is a sophomore this year. This is his 2nd year on the team. James is a strong athlete and a really strong role player on the team. I'm really proud of how James did this season. He finished 27th in individual states, and he and I, as well as like the other coaching staff on our team, we've worked a lot to like try and like work on finding coachable moments for James, for like himself as a competitor, as an athlete, and as a fencer. And he's done that really well. So I really hope to see what you do next season, James. Not here tonight is Nathan Luna. Nathan is a senior. He's a captain of our team. Unfortunate that I'm not going to get another season with him because I really, really enjoyed my time with him. Nathan finished 9th at states, just outside of All-State, but he really performed this season, and I'm really proud of him. Next is our student representative, Louis Kasnoev. My fault. I don't know how to say your name. Louis is a really important piece on our team this year. Despite not fencing in individual states, when team states rolled around and when when we were in the finals against Staples and our match score was tied 4-4, and in the final bout, when Louis was up against his opponent with a score of 4-4, he came through, and with a broken hand, he gave us the state championship title. So, Louis, everyone.
So while they're posing for a picture, the co-op fencing team beat Staples for their state championship. So that's always another good rivalry to win. And our head coach, Jim Roberts, couldn't be here this evening, currently coaching club fencing. Congratulations. The next up is our bowling team. The bowling team won the Connecticut Interscholastic Bowling League, the CIBL. This is their 9th straight year winning the championship in the CIBL. And Coach Brendan Pushkar is going to speak on behalf of his team.
There we go. As Mr. Giacomo mentioned, we have won our CIBL league for the 9th year in a row. The varsity squad won all 13 matches we played and lost only one of the 39 games those matches consisted of. Captains Will Jacobs and Nolan Heron each bowled the 2 best games of all the bowlers in the league this season. Will had a 269 and Nolan had a 245. After winning our league, we went on to finish 3rd in the state tournament. So congratulations, all you guys.
The bowling team competes at Nutmeg Bowl. If next year in the winter, anybody has time to check out their schedule. Brendan, can you just go down the line and introduce each of the student athletes?
Sorry about that. We have senior Reed Fitter, senior Nolan Heron, junior Alex Capuano, freshman Abigail Copperthite, and junior Will Jacobs.
Okay, congratulations. Okay, next up in our combined co-op teams, we have the girls ski team. They won the Connecticut Interscholastic Ski League Championship. This is their 11th state title in the last 12 years, dominating the category. Coach Gary Caricone is here to talk about his team.
Thank you for the board for inviting us tonight. We have representation here tonight. There's a lot of girls that have spring sports going involved tonight, so we have a few of our members joining us tonight. The Fairfield Girls Co-op High School ski team captured their 15th Connecticut State Championship by defeating Hand High School of Madison by 0.7 of a second at Mount Southington a few weeks ago. This capped an undefeated regular season record of 50-0. The state championship is their 3rd in the last 3 consecutive seasons and their 11th state title in the last 12 years. Representing us tonight from my left to right, Kate Lockridge, Molly Bo-Regindi, Ella Dockham, and Tegan Fletcher. And congratulations to all of you.
Congratulations. As Coach Carrico mentioned, the ski teams race at Mount Southington. Tough to be a spectator sport, but congratulations. Thank you, guys. Okay, the next up is the Ward Wrestling team. They had a phenomenal season, some wonderful team accomplishments and a lot of individual accomplishments that we'd like to recognize. The team is led by head coach Jason Shaughnessy, although he does have a wonderful group of coaches. You're getting the real authentic experience. Come on to the middle. Okay, so head coach Jason Shaughnessy is here in the front. As I mentioned, there were many team accomplishments, but also individual accomplishments for this group. Guys, just spread yourself out. And then I'm just going to read off a few of the accomplishments, and then Coach Shaughnessy can fill in anywhere I left off. So this was the second year that Fairfield Ward won the FCX championship. 2023 and 2024. This year they had a 258.5 win over Danbury. Danbury had 215. This team also won the CIA state championship with also beating Danbury. I'm going to call individual names. If you guys could just step forward a little bit. Carson Toth is an FCAC champion at 99 pounds. He's not here this evening. Jude Grammatico, also an FCAC champion at 106 pounds. Zach Boroska is an FCAC champion at 113. He's also a CIAC champion, also at 113. And he is being honored at the All-State Banquet this evening, so he's not here. Dominic Spadaro is an FCAC champion at 138. Ian Bertot, an FCAC champion at 175. Watch out. And Cole Grenier, an FCAC champion at 190. actually don't think Jason was kidding about keeping the boys from wrestling in the hall. Next, we're gonna if anybody knows wrestling, they literally can't not be wrestling. Once the wrestlers move out of the way, the boys indoor track team will come. The girls indoor track, I'll just jump to that for a second because Zen Blanks, who's also on our girls lacrosse team, I don't believe she could make it tonight. She won the class double L shot put for the second year in a row. And then one other student athlete that couldn't be here tonight, I'll just skip to him quickly while we wait for the boys to get in, is Ward's Michael Ivanov. He's on the boys co-op swim team. He won the FCAC championship for the 50 free. Here's our boys indoor track team. This is not Parker's first time in the boardroom being recognized. He's a 3-sport track athlete, as most of our track athletes are. We're going to start with Parker Broderick. He was first in the 1,000 meter at FCAX this year. And we have 2 out of the 4 members of the sprint medley relay team that came in first at the FCAX. 3. We have Parker Broderick, Scott Francis, Otto O'Brien, and Tristan Roche all came in the first place at FCX for the sprint medley relay team. Our boys indoor track team is coached by Mr. Foster, who also coaches outdoor track and couldn't be here. And our girls indoor track team is coached by Mr. Ottavio, also outdoor track coach, could not be here this evening. But thank you guys for being here. Thank you.
Okay, now up for Ludlow. No, they should be ready. First up is the wrestlers from Ludlow. Coming up, Sebastian. So Sebastian is here representing the team. Sebastian was the FCAC champion at 285 pounds. We also have Danelle Young, who was an FCAC champion at 157 pounds. Unfortunately, he was not able to be here tonight. Other winners from wrestling, we have Dylan Sherman, who won the FCAC and the Class L State Championship at 144 pounds. He's being honored at the All-State Banquet tonight, so he was unable to be here. And we also had our first female state champion this year, Kanya McCarthy, who's also being honored tonight at the banquet. She won the Girls Wrestling Championship at 138 pounds, so very exciting for all the wrestlers. So Jeremy Kelly is the coach for wrestling, and unfortunately he couldn't make it as well. He is also at the banquet supporting the athletes who are there tonight. For girls indoor track, Abigail Cerny. Welcome, Abigail. Abigail won first place in the long jump this year at FCX with a jump of 17 feet, which is the 3rd best in school history. That is quite a jump. Her coach, Justin Tomchek, is also an outdoor coach, and he has the FCAC coaches meeting tonight, so he could not be here, but he sends his regards. He wishes he could be here tonight to support you. And last, but certainly not least, Finn Moynihan. Come on up, Finn. Finn is a diver for the co-op team from Ludlow. Finn won the FCAC, the Class LL, and the State Open Championship this year. He also won the State Open last year. This year, the second place finisher was over 100 points behind Finn. Really, very impressive. Congratulations, Finn.
While they're taking a photo, Todd and I just want to thank everybody again for giving us this opportunity to acknowledge our student athletes and our appreciation for the board support, the support of Mr. Testani and everybody at central office and our head principals. The spring seasons start on Saturday. So we are well underway into the next seasons. All the schedules are on our websites or on the CAC site. We would love to have you as a guest at one of our spring events, and hopefully the weather turns at some point. Thank you.
I also just want to give one last shout out to all the winter coaches. The winter season is a long season. It starts right after Thanksgiving and ended just about a week ago. It goes through a couple of vacations, major holidays. It's a very difficult season to coach. A lot of these coaches are teachers. They get in the building, it's dark out. They leave after practice and it's dark out. So they do a lot of work, not only on the court, in the fields, but also scouting teams, going to other games to watch teams, to prepare our teams. So just thank you for all the work that they do.
I just had one quick question. I wish I'd sent this in ahead of time. Of any of the seniors that we just recognized, do you know if any of them are continuing to participate collegiately?
I think for Ward, I do believe some are making decisions. I don't want to spill any beans that haven't been spilled, because that could be, but most of our wrestlers were younger, so they're not competing in college. But I do know of one or two on this paper, but I don't think it's public. So I'm not going to say anything. But we will have a signing day. We had one in November on National Signing Day. We will have another around graduation because the recruiting window is different for each sport. And we will recognize those student athletes, and it'll be on our Instagrams if you want to follow and check that out. This is difficult for Todd and I because a lot of our winter teams had success. But at some point you have to cut it off. I mean, we had teams make semifinals, quarterfinals. Like Todd mentioned, it's a grueling season. We had a lot of individual accomplishments. So the winter season was full of success at both schools, but you had to find a way to capture it and be fair. This was the only way we could really do that.
Like Jim said, we will be having our signing day in June, but is Finn still here? Oh, he may have left. He took part in the signing day in the fall, and if my memory serves me correctly, I believe he's attending Georgia Tech.
Before we move on to the next item, I just want to recognize Mr. Giacomo and Mr. Parnas. I think the success of our programs all starts with their leadership. Talk about time and dedication to their schools and their student athletes and coaches. I think these are two of the hardest working folks here in the district, and I want to thank them for their continued commitment. And I know that they balance a lot, especially and give up a lot when it comes to the winter season. As Todd mentioned, the vacations that they don't go on with their families, the holidays that they don't always get to spend the entire holiday break with their families, the nights, the weekends. So I want to say thank you to both of them, because without their commitment to their programs and their schools and their student athletes, all of this wouldn't be possible.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'll echo the same sentiments and just thank you both for all that you do for our schools and for our kids and for their families. Express our thanks to all the coaches and athletic trainers and those who wrap up the ankles and the fingers and the toes and the bus drivers and everything that goes into it. It takes a lot of people for everything that we saw here tonight and all the kids that participate, and super proud of them all, and thank you both for that. Anyone else?
Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having us.
Yep. Okay, moving on. Chronic absenteeism report, Dr. Parrish.
Good evening, Zakia Parrish, Deputy Superintendent. I'm here to share with you some of the success and progress we've had as a school district and as individual schools with respect to our chronic absenteeism and the reductions that have taken place over the course of this school year. Just a reminder for those who may not know, chronic absenteeism, that is 10% of the school days that are in session. It is inclusive of both unexcused and excused absences. Sometimes that is lost in terms of the understanding of what chronic absenteeism means. So just for the public and those who may be listening at home, it is inclusive of all days, both unexcused and excused. So just to give you a little comparison of how we have fared through the course of this school year in comparison to last year, this first chart just shows you where we were as of the first of each of those months in comparison to last school year. And as you can see, overall as a district through the month of, or I should say, up until March 1st of this current year, as a district, we have reduced our chronic absenteeism rate from last year, March 1st, to this year, March 1st, by 4.5%. I want to highlight a lot of the schools who have had great success over the course of the month of March, or through the month of March, I should say. At our K-5 level, those that have had at least 6% decreases through March 1st, we have Dwight, McKinley, North Stratfield, Riverfield, and Stratfield, all with 6 or higher percent decreases from March 1st of 2023 through March 1st of 2024. At our middle school level, highlighting almost a 10%, it's 9.45% decrease in chronic absenteeism at Fairfield Woods, and we've had success at our high schools as well. So overall, as a district, the hard work that our school teams have been doing in terms of re-engaging students and families has been paying off. The next chart just shows you the breakdown by subgroup. Just for those who may not know, we did set our district improvement plan goals based on a baseline from the 2020-2021 school year. Just a note that 1920 school year only goes through mid-March. That's when we had the launch of the COVID pandemic. So those rates are only through mid-March. The rest of the years that are there are the full course of the school year. The final column that's there is where we stand as a district as of March 13th. So year-to-date March 13th, as you can see, in comparison to last year, this was through the end of last year, our subgroup populations have decrease the chronic absenteeism rates. I really want to highlight the progress we've made with respect to our students who are identified as multilingual learners. We've had some reductions, significant reductions over the last few years in chronic absenteeism for those populations. Our students who have IEPs, as well as those who have been identified as in the high needs subgroup. So just looking at, again, our students of various race and ethnic identities, we've also experienced reductions in the chronic absenteeism rates amongst those subgroups as well. So again, kudos to the school teams for all the work that they've done in supporting and re-engaging our students and families. I referred to the district improvement plan previously. This is the goal with respect to the DIP, our KPI number 9. Our goal was to reduce chronic absenteeism to less than 5%, or 5 or less, I should say, by the year 2027. Based on that baseline number that I mentioned in this previous graph, that 2021 end of year baseline, in order to reach that 5%, that first column after the categories represents how much we have to decrease each year in order to make progress towards that goal of 5%. The next column shows you again where we were as of March 13th, and that represented 125 school days. So chronically absent at that point in time is anyone that has had both unexcused and excused absences at least 12.5 days or greater So that's the March 13th represented the 125th school day. In terms of our actual goal for this year, in order to get, again, making that yearly progress towards our DIP goal, you can see where we need to be by each of the different categories and subgroups within our student populations. So while we have made great progress from one year to the next, as you can see, we still have some work to do. And that's work, again, that the schools have been fully engaged in over the course of the last few years to really make sure that we support both our students as well as families to re-engage them and reduce their absenteeism. In terms of some of the work that they have done as school teams, of course, all of our school improvement plans have goals that are connected to our district improvement plan. Again, there's that alignment. They meet monthly, weekly, to really dive deep into the data in terms of looking at trends across different grade levels or groups of students, looking at students who may have come off the chronic absenteeism list, because that's also something we want to highlight and celebrate, but also those students who may eventually fall off the list as we continue to have additional school days throughout the course of the year. So those school teams meet with students, they meet with parents, they connect them with resources as appropriate, again, all in an effort to re-engage our student population. We launched our revised chronic absenteeism letter this year, again, softening the language, but also providing some data. I think it's important for parents to know where their child stands with respect to not only the other students in that grade level, but the other students in that school. And so the revised chronic absenteeism letter does have data in it so that parents have access to that information as well. Some of the work that we did on a district level as a district attendance team was drafting this attendance handbook, both a parent and a staff version. The parent version is accessible on our website under the parent tab, under the district website. And it has a really great graphic that our director of communication created that summarizes the attendance policy. There's a lot of information in that policy, and so that graphic really breaks it down to 5 big bullets that really summarize what it is, what it means, and how parents can make sure that they are understanding what the policy actually entails. We also have a staff version that allows us to provide sample agendas. It gives them some connections to some of the resources they can connect families and students with. Again, that's available for staff as well, some FAQs in both versions of the handbook. And then last but not least, there are supports on a state level. The State Department of Education have these Talk Tuesday webinars on a regular basis, sharing best practices across the state, but also highlighting districts that have made significant improvements in terms of student absenteeism, particularly chronic absenteeism. So that's just a really, really, really brief summary of what our school teams have done. Again, they're continuing to do a lot of great work, really trying to make sure that we provide the supports that students need to re-engage them within the school community. And I think that their work, as you can see through the data that has been provided, has really started to pay off. But again, it's not over. We're still continuing to move forward and continuing to try to re-engage families and students as necessary.
Thanks, Dr. Parrish. Thank you for putting this presentation together. Mr. Peterson.
Sorry, I wanted to wait till you were ready. Thank you for the presentation. The improvement is extremely welcome. I look forward to the day we can get closer to those 18-19 numbers, which kind of is, I know it's outside of the scope of this presentation, but how are we doing? We know this is not a Fairfield only problem. How are we doing relative to other communities in our area? Are there national benchmarks that you're looking at? I mean, I want to know if we're improving at the pace we should be improving at.
I think nationally, we saw a significant increase in chronic absenteeism as a result of the pandemic, and I think that was also a state and regional trend that we also experienced. Schools are working and seeing similar progress. Some are doing better, some are not doing as well. It really just depends on some of the ways in which they are able to re-engage students and families, and there's some challenging cases. Not all of it are things where it's just a matter of a student coming to school. There's some social emotional barriers that we really have to continue to address, and we're working hard to address so that that school avoidance that we were seeing during the pandemic and through the pandemic, even after the pandemic, we're trying to continue to provide those supports to keep those kids in school.
Mrs. Maxon Kennelly.
Yes, thank you for this. And thrilled to see the improving results. The one area which to me is a little striking for showing slower improvement is our high schools. And I was wondering if you can speak to that any more than the data points that are in here. And then I was also hoping either you or staff could speak to, I mean, the high schools actually have their own attendance policies, which are supposed to be, I guess you can't call that a carrot. I think it's a bit of a stick in terms of motivating students, that they have a vested interest, never mind the learning that's taking place and the high school transcript they're creating. So I was wondering if you could just speak to the high school piece a bit more.
So the policy 5113 that actually speaks to specifically like high school credit, it is only specifically identifies unexcused. So chronic is inclusive of both excused and unexcused, but the loss of credit piece of it really is only specific based on policy language, unexcused absences. So they do have conversations with students in reference to their attendance, particularly those who may be in danger of loss of credit because of the unexcused absences. But there is that difference in terms of what policy language states versus what the chronic absenteeism measure actually measures.
So the two things, again, how are we not reaching them better? But I'm talking about the specific within the high schools when they have their attendance appeal committees. That's high school policy as opposed to capital letter P policy. So I didn't know if that's something, if any of our administrators, two of whom are here, would be able to speak to that in terms of how is that being wielded in an effective method? Is it not effective? Because obviously we need them to get to school. And so I was just hoping to hear more about that.
We have one here.
Thank you. And we definitely, Greg Hatzis, Fairfield Little High School, attendance is a really hard nut to crack. We have really been working really hard, as Dr. Parrish has shared, working with families directly. I kind of feel there's two camps here. One is that some of the children who have been out with some kind of chronic illness, we have seen those be exacerbated compared to what we've seen in the past. Longer term illnesses, sometimes more severe than what we were seeing pre-pandemic, and so those extended absences really do impact obviously the chronic rates. I also feel like there's been a change in the culture, and just 3 years ago, by necessary edict, we asked the students to stay home every other day. And we also see a lot more parents staying home now, with the working conditions that there are. So I think that there is I don't want to call it a permissiveness, but a culture that says that it's more okay now that students stay home within, that we're hearing from families, that they feel that there's a greater need for that to happen. So, that's a little bit of an uphill battle for us in terms of working with them to make sure that they're coming to school more frequently. We see the impact, and we put out letters, I know both schools do, saying that there is a direct impact between student performance and their attendance in school, and so that's a very clear and evident thing that we see. So these are all factors that we're trying to deal with. In terms of the policy that you asked about, I know that by and large the Board of Ed policy reflects a lot of the state policy, so I'm not sure there's much to tweak there. At the school level, we did make a change where before we were counting both excused and unexcused absences toward loss of credit. But what we were finding is that a large number of students, that those were legitimate absences, either, again, long-term illnesses or another excused reason. So there was a lot of needless bringing kids into appeals meetings that required explanation where they would be excused from losing credit. So we changed the policy to just focus on unexcused absences. So now I think what we're also seeing is a larger number of parents who might be calling in absences, making them excused so that it doesn't trigger the loss of credit impact. So that's something that we're looking at. It's really hard to tell, like post-pandemic, if that change really made an impact in the increase of chronic absenteeism. We have been making steady progress in getting it down, but we have more work to do.
I think Greg really explained it well. I think that, there are processes put in place like loss of credit when students appeal the loss of credit, and our deans and our attendance teams really do a good job of trying to, to have outreach to students and families and also hold students accountable who aren't coming to school. But I think the challenge is kind of what he said, that, people don't think twice before taking a vacation and having unexcused absences. So that's something that we're working against some of the culture and how things have changed post-pandemic, but we are seeing improvements. So we're hoping that the trends will continue as we continue to just reach out to families, making sure we're holding people accountable, and making sure the kids know how important it is for them to be in school.
Can I just add to that? It's no secret to anyone in this room that the biggest change that we've seen in the last 15 years has been the increase of anxiety and the social emotional needs of the students. The state instituted 2 SEL days that are excused absences, and we have a lot of students taking advantage of that. So that's the double-edged sword, right? That's something that we have to allow, but at the same time, we're seeing a need for those that support for those students, and they're calling out when they don't feel like they're going to be ready to learn that day.
Can I just back up on what you said? The 2 health days that we are required to allow students to take, those still count towards the chronic absenteeism, right? Correct? So some of this is also the way that the state counts things. If you miss 4 in a month, you're chronically absent. So if you have 1 round of the flu, you're done for the month, for the year, right? For that month anyway, but some of this is around some of the definitions that are happening too, that I think that we could try to get some state policy around. But okay, Mr. Lee.
Just curious, the absentee letters you sent home, if possible, are they bilingual for?
So I believe that they are translatable to Spanish, but they're not translatable to all languages.
Just if possible, yeah.
Mrs. Flynn.
This is for Dr. Parrish. Thank you for your insight at the high school level. When you talk about that baseline number, you highlighted a few of our elementary schools that did see some significant progress. Was that just from these strategies? Did they do something different at those schools? Was there about a flu? I do think there's some of that's subjective, but are you seeing a need for school-wide programs that are taking place, or is this all being done one-on-one through letters and school-based teams? What's the mix, I guess?
It's a combination of a little bit of everything. I think that schools are trying to be creative in ways to celebrate students and ways to acknowledge them individually, whole group, but also to try to meet with them and figure out what their needs are. So that I think schools are trying to think outside of the box, but it really is a case-by-case situation.
I do think it's going to be important in the next few years to kind of look at that 2018 baseline. I think it's absolutely true from a family perspective. I think many people are much less hesitant to keep their kids home when they're sick. When, pre-pandemic, kids would have been sent to school with a sniffly nose. I think there's a lot of learned behaviors, and I would say maybe watching that grade 8 and below, and if those behaviors continue and it's not just a trend, it's the new baseline. It's just something that popped in my head when you referenced that. Thank you for the time and the information.
Mrs. Guernsey.
Thank you for this presentation. And I just wanted to give a shout out to our high school principals for communicating pieces that are educational to our community. So appreciate what's happening with Dr. Parrish and the information that's going out to the families that are chronically absent. But I think the proactive approach of having these letters that are educational, and I think strike a really nice tone, or at least the one I received, a nice tone, I assume all of them were this way, between being educational and also having an empathetic empathetic sort of side to it too, where like we understand, but also here, let's let this play out so you can understand. So thank you for that.
Mr. Krasnoff.
I'm just wondering, is the unexcused number dropping drastically and the excused is rising? That's kind of what it sounded like at the high school. Like, what's the mix?
I haven't disaggregated that. That would be something we would have to separate out. We were looking specifically at chronic.
I think it'd be good to see, at least in terms of the trends, like Katie was saying, people are getting excused absences maybe a little more often now, because back in the day, you would have a fever and your parents would be like, go to school. Now you have a fever, you're staying home. There's a big difference between whether it's being excused or unexcused. Not that it changes the level of education that you're missing out on by any means, but it might just be good to understand where the numbers are coming from.
In the absence of the data, I would just say in conversations with principals, and that was actually shared today, they have seen an increase in the excused, just because parents are now more, we've been really pushing the difference between the two, and they want to make sure that those days that need to be excused are excused.
And I think we also have to keep a little bit of an equity lens on too, because we know the families, single parent households, if they're working, they might be leaving before the students even are going to school. So, that ability for them to call, you would think, anybody has the chance to call in, but some folks have jobs that just don't allow them to do that. So then they're playing catch up with the school in terms of letting us know. So like there's a lot of factors that we need to take into account.
Mr. Lee.
Do we have a reason why Walter Fitzgerald is the ones that have increased in this chart? It's the only schools in Fairfield, correct, that's had a significant increase.
Well, these are our most delicate high school students. I think that the things that we're seeing across the two comprehensive high schools and even the elementary and middle schools are concentrated at WFC. So some of the social emotional challenges, some of the school avoidance, they really work hard to get the kids in the door and try to keep them there as long as they possibly can. But it is a challenge, and they're trying to unpack a lot of the layers and trauma that some of the students that are there are dealing with, just to make sure that they see school as a safe space. But it is a challenge to compare WFC's population and numbers to the other two comprehensive schools, because it's really a concentration of what we're seeing on a greater scale.
And to be fair, those students who were back at the high schools would have been chronically absent there too. So, I mean, the fact that they're at Walter Fitz is to really, as Dr. Parrish said, create an environment for them that would be more conducive to them attending. But there's a transition process in that.
Mr. Lee, I just want to add to that, because some of those children transition to Walter Fitzgerald from the other two high schools, obviously, during the course of the year, and they bring those absences already with them. So they were chronically absent at Ward or Ludlow. When they get to Walter Fitzgerald, now they're on the Walter Fitzgerald rolls, but they don't reset. So they're being unfairly attributed to Walter Fitzgerald when they should have been attributed to the other two schools. And with a small population of kids, that number grows if one kid is chronically absent. So I think it's difficult then to put it on Walter Fitzgerald.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the report. All right, curriculum status update, K-12 Science, K-5 STEAM. Dr. Zavajancic, Ms. Lasala. Hi, welcome.
Good evening, thank you. Good evening, everybody. James Zavajancic, Chief Academic Officer. And tonight I'm joined by Ms. Lasala, who will introduce some of our teachers in her department as well. Ms. Lasala is our Program Director of K-12 Science and will lead the presentation this evening on our science and STEAM updates, beginning with the elementary school and STEAM. Just to give some background on our curriculum review process here, approximately every 10 years, every content and discipline engages in a review of curriculum for pre-K-12, which ends in an updated curriculum seeking approval from the Board of Education. The science curriculum was last approved in the spring of 2018, and science is next slated for revision and approval in the 2027-2028 school year. In STEAM, the following year, 2028 to 2029. That's not where the work ends. After the approval process, teachers generally engage in professional learning for the following 10 years, but mainly in that 1 year after, and it's centered and embedded within the curriculum implementation. As you know, even our best laid plans at the time that we bring to you undergo some constant changes for the changing times. At the halfway point between the curriculum review and the next approval process, which brings us here this evening, the district updates the public and the board on the discipline's curriculum implementation, or what we call a status update. The work in the schools also doesn't stop at that time. In between the approval process, school and district staff continue to work on curriculum implementation. This happens in their grade level meetings, their professional learning time, as well as their team time. The implementation, which is not a public-facing document, which you guys have not seen, is internal, and it includes the revision and the creation of summative informative tasks or assessments based on the standards, the contents, and the skills that are approved, as well as lesson sequences that are talked about and discussed among the professionals teaching those disciplines. This is a continual cycle of improvement as teachers instruct in the curriculum, assess in real time, and later revise and improve their implementation of what was approved. Ms. LaSala will walk us through the STEAM and science updates of where we've been and where we plan on going in the next few years before their next approval.
Good evening. I'm Justine LaSala, supervisor, Science K-12 program, Science and STEAM K-12 program director, excuse me. Joining me this evening are two of our district STEAM teachers, Lauren Noonan and Melinda Grims. Thank you both for joining me, as well as some of the STEAM teachers in the back. We're a small but mighty team, and I want to give special thanks to Lauren for coming tonight because it is her birthday. Happy birthday, Lauren. That's how dedicated she is. James just went over the curriculum review cycle for you, so I won't do that again. And I'm going to move our slides here. Sorry. We're going to start with STEAM tonight. I hope that's okay, so Lauren can go home and celebrate her birthday. In the summer of 2019, the STEAM team developed a vision statement for the STEAM program. Creative problem solving and engineering design in authentic context are the core of the Fairfield Public Schools STEAM program. Over the past 4 years, the STEAM team has created a standards-based model curriculum that focuses on developing dispositions and skills outlined in the Fairfield Public Schools vision of the graduate within a student-centered classroom. STEAM provides opportunities for students to make cross-curricular connections, tap into their creativity, and grow their interpersonal skills. STEAM is enrichment for all. Currently, STEAM is taught once a day, once per 6-day cycle to all students in kindergarten through grade 5 as a special. With just under 7 full-time staff, STEAM teachers carry a full-time teaching load, and each STEAM teacher is split between 2 school buildings. Since the adoption of the STEAM program in 2018, the STEAM department has worked to develop and implement unit implementation guides that support the K-5 curriculum. As you can see, the STEAM curriculum is comprised of 3 units for each year, K-5. In each year, there is 1 coding unit, identified in green, and 2 engineering design units. Over the course of curriculum through 5th grade, students are presented with a variety of design challenges and experiences that support their development as creative problem solvers. As the culminating experience of the K-5 STEAM program, students participate in the Connecticut Invention Convention in 5th grade as they envision and develop an invention to solve a problem of their choice. As we built our unit implementation guides, we designed all STEAM units according to the following parameter. All STEAM units are interdisciplinary and standards-based. All coding units are aligned to the CSTA standards, and engage students in a vertical learning progression that builds knowledge and skills in computer science. All non-computer science units are aligned to the NGSS and Connecticut Common Core standards. All units are unified by grounding them in this engineering design process. In each engineering design unit, students focus on a specific design challenge that requires students to build background content knowledge on diverse topics, for example, bridges, landforms, pollinators. Each unit has an associated anchor text to both engage students and provide a base on which to build knowledge and skills. For every unit and every design challenge, there are multiple valid solutions. The opportunities for divergent solutions support student creativity and ownership, ensure the success of all students, and help build student autonomy and self-esteem. Team building and collaboration is an essential component of every unit. Students work with their peers and are providing guidance to learn interpersonal skills as they engage in tasks. All units include multiple points of student self-directed exploration and teacher guidance and support a guided play-based learning model. All units include embedded student performance tasks, either a proposed design solution or a completed coding project.
Okay, this is the engineering design process. In this process, it's a decision-making process, often iterative, in which science, math, and engineering concepts are applied to develop optimal solutions to meet an established objective. The engineering design process provides the STEAM program and staff with a framework for effective practices and to help address access and opportunity for all children to engage in early STEAM learning. STEAM units were designed following a K-5 engineering design learning progression that builds students' knowledge and creative problem-solving skills over time. The overarching enduring understandings for the K-5 STEAM program include: engineers start with problems, brainstorm ideas, and try different ways to find a solution. They record their thinking, test and retest ideas, and persevere through obstacles. Criteria and constraints guide the development of possible solutions to design problems. Engineers may have to try multiple solutions to find the best or most successful one. Engineers work collaboratively to share ideas to solve problems. Programmers start with problems, come up with ideas, and try different ways to find a solution. The goal for students to carry these insights and dispositions beyond the K-5 STEAM program and apply them throughout their lives to future academic and non-academic pursuits.
We wanted to highlight 2 units in more detail to provide you with a greater insight into the unit implementation guides that we have created. For this 4th grade unit, the design challenge is identifying the best location to build a new bridge in Nepal based upon local geological conditions and the needs of a community. During this unit, students learn and engage in hands-on exploration of soil cores and their ability to hold structures. They learn about different types of soil and the effects of erosion. They gather information about how soil conditions affect construction projects. They test different bridges designs, and finally, they weigh the needs of various community members, decide on the best location for bridge construction. In order for students to select a construction site based upon constraints and criteria and then present their final recommendation, they must do the following. They need to build background information on landforms, erosion, and geography, build vocabulary and understand etymology of words, analyze and use maps, model earthquake-proof structures, analyze different soil types, engage in the engineering design process, and then finally engage in an argument that's based in evidence.
The next unit we wanted to highlight was a grade 1 coding unit. In this unit, students learn how to build and use algorithms and loops in programming. Students are introduced to the unit with the anchor text, How to Code a Sandcastle, where they learn the basics of sequencing and loops. They then create a maze for a code and go mouse, and then use a series of directional cards to build a sequential code for the mouse. They also engage in unplugged coding activities and solve sequential codes in Angry Bird puzzles. Coding is an effective way for children to learn creativity, collaboration, and problem solving using technology. The STEAM program provides guaranteed computer science education for all of our K-5 students and provides a strong foundation for future coursework in computer science. The critical thinking and problem solving skills developed can be transferred to other areas of learning as well. Our coding units are based upon the open source code.org curriculum and utilize a variety of hardware tools such as Code and Go mice, Ozobots, and Lego robots. The units reflect the K-5 computer science learning progression outlined. We also engage students in unplugged activities to help students learn sequencing and events. Unplugged activities trains the brain to think sequentially, breaking down a task into small steps, and grounds learning in the physical world so students know what is happening when they are coding and how coding decisions are made.
Invention Convention is a culminating event for the STEAM program. Fifth grade students apply the engineering design process to identify a problem they want to solve, then design and present their solution. Some of the students' inventions this year included a Braille art kit, EpiPen pants, eye makeup phone case, and hot and cold sheets. And one of my personal favorites was the quick stick. I think you've witnessed something very special if you've been a judge for Invention Convention. I know that several of you present this evening has served as judges for us, and we thank you for that. You have seen the magic of the students presenting the challenges that they've been asked to do. Invention Convention gives every student the opportunity to excel in creativity and innovation. As one of my students said when asked for feedback on the Invention Convention, he said, "It felt like being a teacher for the day. I was the expert." As we said in the beginning, STEAM is enrichment for all, and Invention Convention really showcases that idea. A portion of students are selected to advance from the building level competition to the state Invention Convention semifinals. Last year, 26 students from Fairfield went to the state Invention Convention at UConn. Fairfield sent more students to the state competition than any other district in the state. The STEAM department has also been fortunate to work with dedicated and generous community partners. Fairfield Pollinator Pathways, Oliver's Nursery, Fairfield Forestry Commission, and School Green Teams have all partnered with the STEAM team to create and implement the Pollinator Garden Design Unit in Grade 1 and the Artificial Pollinator Design Unit in Grade 2. In these units, students learn about specific native plants and pollinators that are vital components of Fairfield's ecosystem, how they rely on each other for survival, and sustainable design strategies that can help to maintain the health of our local ecosystem. Our community partners have provided resources, professional learning for our STEAM teachers, and feedback in the development of our units.
So to wrap up our presentation, just to focus on our STEAM student outcomes, STEAM learning promotes the following outcomes listed up on the slide, including the development of problem-solving skills, building students' sense of self-efficacy. It encourages creative and divergent thinking, and the development of positive attitudes towards academic risk-taking that supports learning and growth. The development of interpersonal skills also helps students to be successful in collaborating with others. These STEAM student outcomes support students to be successful in all academic areas. As once was overheard by one kindergarten STEAM student to another, "It's not working. Think like an engineer." As we look ahead, we are hoping in the future, in the next couple of years. We're hoping to update and strengthen our robotics unit in grade 5. As you can imagine, a lot of times our robotics equipment gets old and broken. The current robots that we use in grade 5 are Lego We-Dos, which Lego has now discontinued, and now we heard they're also going to discontinue the software in the fall. So that's part of this type of program, which is a continual issue for us. We're also hoping to incorporate more learning on artificial intelligence as appropriate for young children into our coding units. And we're looking to increase collaboration with classroom teachers and specialists in the building to provide enhanced interdisciplinary experiences for students. And at this point, we invite any questions or comments you may have about the STEAM curriculum.
Mrs. Rinaldi?
Thank you so much for this. This is so interesting. I really like the quote, STEAM is enrichment for all. I was taking a look at the kindergarten level and just the breakdown there. I imagine that's really just getting your feet wet. It's not anything too in-depth, just, giving them their firsthand look at it. So if you could just speak to that really quickly. I'm just curious, honestly.
Sure. I mean, for all kindergarten students, the beginning of the year is just getting used to school. However, they still do go to STEAM, and I'm going to get Lauren, I'll let Lauren answer what she does with the kindergarten students.
So with the kindergarten, especially in the beginning of the year, what we are introducing them to is the engineering design process. So we're introducing, asking and identifying a problem or something that they need to solve, and then working through how can we plan for that, and then how can we maybe build something that might address that, and then if it's not working, is it working? So we're working through that process, and we do that several times with different design challenges. So we're introducing it as guided play, but with creative problem solving going on underneath. It's also an introduction to the materials that they're going to have available, as well as, in many cases, teamwork, which is always an adventure. But a lot of this is just getting them into the engineering design process in a way that feels in some cases familiar, but it's a gentle process.
Thank you. Very helpful.
Kennelly?
Yeah, you actually alluded right at the very end to one thing that had been one of the early questions I wrote down, which is because we always look at these status updates as a chance to prepare us for what are you looking to change going forward? In other words, having been using, in the system now for 4 or 5 years, what are you looking to change? And I was hoping you could repeat your list because it took me by surprise right at the end. So I heard AI, but I wasn't sure what were the other things you mentioned.
The first thing I mentioned is that one thing we wanted to do is to strengthen our 5th grade robotics unit. So that right now, currently, we use Lego We-Do robots, which have been discontinued. So just trying to figure out what to do with that going forward. We do have some smaller type of hardware that we use with the younger kids, like the Code and Go mice that we talked about before. But that's something that, it's a program like this, you want to constantly be able to provide students with the newest little resources that are out there for them. The other thing we wanted to do is incorporate more learning on artificial intelligence. And we also wanted to increase collaboration with classroom teachers and specialists. We feel that
that's definitely the one I was hoping you could elaborate on, because that interdisciplinary connection is what I'm always interested in hearing more about.
Again, I'll say at this point, it's a goal for us. We have spent the past couple of years building our implementation guides and making sure that our units are set. And now we're in a really good spot. So now we're ready for what's next.
Thank you. And then just one other point, because obviously this work with coding, I don't know, again, dating myself, but I don't remember how many years ago we approved the first coding class in middle school. And now I'm wondering if our 2nd graders wouldn't surpass the work that we, put into our middle school curriculum. So I was wondering I am assuming that this work is impacting that in the middle school, and that's something that's going to need a lot of work. And I'm not even sure who's in charge of that.
Yeah, well, I'll just mention that I have made sure that I've been meeting with the upper grades to let them know what we're doing now in STEAM. Yes, because now we need to build a vertical articulation of computer science.
Mrs. Flynn.
Thank you very much for the presentation and all you do. I'm the very proud mom of a lot of Ozobots in my house. They're very popular and definitely worth their. It's a big bang for your buck. So I can imagine that they get used very well. But you mentioned unplugged activities that seem to reference like team building and question. Could you give me an idea of like what that looks like right now? Not that we're necessarily talking about screen time, but is it on Chromebooks? Is it on the code bots? Is it all kind of a mix? Just to give some insight for the community as well.
Okay, an unplugged activity, each code.org unit, each grade level starts with an activity that the students would do that would show them, and it could be like cup stacking. But you're using arrows and you're giving directions. So you're starting from learning sequence and looping, but with doing something concrete and paper and communicating through giving very succinct directions to show that when you're a computer coder, you have to be very articulate. You've got to give good directions. A computer won't understand unless you're talking clearly. And it starts off unplugged first. And each grade level has at least one or two activities to get them from thinking concretely before we put them on computers.
And when they do plug in, are they plugging into their own Chromebooks? Or are they using one or two laptops with guided? I'm just curious what's being utilized during that time.
It depending on the grade level, but kindergarten, first grade, we do a lot of modeling on the smart boards first to introduce what the puzzles look like before we put them on independently, because they do need to know what it looks like first. And then after you do a couple introductory lessons in first grade, they're on their own. They get it. And second through fifth grade, they are one-on-one.
Yeah, 2 third graders and a 6th grader, and yeah, they get it. They're often looking at us and rolling their eyes as we're like, what's that? So you're not aging yourself that much. But one more to Miss Maxon Kennelly's point, and something that I saw as a PTA leader and with our green teams. Can you speak to any current engagement with our art teachers? Obviously, that's kind of embedded. I think I have seen it at a few of our art shows. Work between STEAM. Do you see that continuing? I don't know if it's facilitated in other capacities, but it's been such a wonderful, I've seen it personally. So if you can speak to that.
Well, we haven't done any work with the art department per se at this point. I do think though, way to think about STEAM with art has a very broad definition versus a narrow definition of visual arts or performing arts. What students do here in the creative design process that they engage is how we touch on the art piece. Again, the one thing that gets tricky is these STEAM teachers, they teach a full-time teaching load. They are, and in some cases, their day is a kindergarten class, a 5th grade class, a 1st grade class, and you can see all the different units we're doing and all the different materials they're using, and it's quick. Their days are very full, and they're split between 2 buildings. So it's just right now their schedule's really tight.
My final question was going to be, what challenges are you guys seeing? So I appreciate the feedback, and I look forward to the curriculum work as it continues. Thank you all so much for what you do.
Thanks. So a quick pop. Thank you so much for this presentation. I'm a huge fan of STEAM. Just wanted to follow up on Mrs. Flynn's comment about the A in STEAM, which is something, in your presentation, I didn't hear that a lot. So that's something I'm always looking for. And while it's built in, just, that it be an intentional part and that it be communicated that way, I think is important. Otherwise, it becomes STEM. So just moving forward, I'd be interested in that. And I know it's built into it, but it doesn't, we don't hear the words. So it's important for that to be communicated. Thanks.
To just speak to this art piece, I know that when I'm speaking about art, a lot of times we're talking about, we also don't, as engineers, many times when we're building something, you don't build a bridge without thinking about what it's going to look like. So when we're talking about art, it's that component of it as well, is that making, it might be making something aesthetically pleasing, not just being, tied in with the art. And I know that many of us have worked and done small projects when we can with either the teachers in our building, the classroom teachers, or the other specialists when we can. When we find opportunities, we really do try to hop on, because it is fun for the kids as well as fun for us.
Mr. Krasnoff?
I just want to thank you guys for everything you do. It's a really important thing. In addition, like Ms. Max Canelli said, I'm really interested in what you can do with the interdisciplinary stuff, especially with the subject teachers and the classroom teachers, because obviously there's a lot of crossover and it'd be really beneficial.
Okay, much for that update. Are you moving on to the STEM now? Okay. Science.
Okay, I'm going to move on to the next part of our presentation, which is our pre-K 12 science update. Joining me for this portion of the presentation is Sonia Warner. To my right, she's the science department leader at Fairfield Ward High School, and Leah Dalton, the science department leader at Fairfield Ludlow High School. National Research Council's a framework for K-12 science education is the basis for the NGSS standards and provides the standards and guidance for the development of curriculum assessments and instruction in K-12 science. The framework and the associated next generation science standards represent a significant new approach to what and how students should learn science. Specifically, that students need to actively engage in science and engineering practices and apply cross-cutting concepts to deepen their understandings of core ideas. The framework also articulates how, by the end of high school, all students should have gained sufficient knowledge and skills to engage in public discussion of science-related issues, be critical consumers of scientific information, and pursue future learning in science if they desire. The NGSS standards condenses the framework and provides us with expected performance expectations for assessment at the end of the grade bands K2, 3, 5, 6, 8, and 9, 12. While these two interconnected documents provide guidance for learning outcomes for students, they do not outline the coherent instructional programs that are needed to help students achieve these standards. That is the work of our curriculum and implementation guides. In the past, science standards at both the state and district levels have treated the dimensions of science as separate and distinct entities. The framework provides a three-dimensional framework for science learning. The first dimension are the science and engineering practices, which identify the knowledge and skills needed to engage in scientific inquiry. The second dimension, the cross-cutting concepts, are those concepts that are universal across all disciplines of science. Finally, the third dimension is the disciplinary core ideas, identify core science content that occurs at each grade level. Importantly, students' proficiency in science is achieved through the integration of the three dimensions in both instruction and assessment. Student learning outcomes need to focus on understanding and application as opposed to memorization of facts. The framework are built on the premise that in order for students to be successful in science, they need to engage in the science and engineering practices to develop deeper understandings of science concepts. At the same time, in order to make sense of information we experience in our daily lives, we need scientifically literate citizens who understand how scientific knowledge is created, as well as how scientific knowledge evolves over time. At the same time, those students interested in pursuing college and careers in science also need a strong foundation. What has happened in Fairfield Public Schools since the science curriculum adoption in 2018? I can say an incredible amount of learning and work has taken place. First of all, in 2018, when the curriculum documents were completed, all staff did not have a complete understanding of the standards. When I arrived in 2019, NGSS performance expectations were assigned to courses without a larger vision of the science program as a whole and how students would achieve proficiency in the standards. There was not a clear path of learning for students in the high school program, and teachers were working in silos and did not share common expectations, learning goals, or assessments. Looking back, we have accomplished an incredible amount of work and progress over the last 4 years. Most importantly, a significant amount of time has been spent on creating a common understanding of the vision for the science department. Teachers have been provided with sustained and targeted professional learning to strengthen their understandings of the standards and their shifts in instruction and assessment, as well as how to design and implement instruction assessment aligned to the standards. I'm going to go back, sorry. Instead of working in silos, I have prioritized for staff the need to collaborate and capitalize on the strength of our own human capital to provide consistent and coherent learning experiences for students both across teachers of the same course grade and across grade levels K-11. The department has engaged extensively in ongoing collaborative unit and assessment development. These improvement routines have been collaborative, consistent, and iterative with the intention to build organizational capacity. In addition, we have leveraged 2 digital platforms, Mystery Science and Gizmos, as resources to support instruction. We created a material science center for elementary science that that inventories, manages, and refurbishes our classroom kits. This ensures that elementary science teachers have the materials they need and also reduce costs associated with science materials. At the high school level, we also have chemical hygiene officers now to oversee building level lab safety and chemical management.
Hi, so I just want to talk a little bit about my experience since 2018. So since then, I've gotten to know all the teachers at Ward. We meet frequently and I collaborate with them. Especially for, if I teach the same course, we're constantly in communication. And not only do we collaborate during department meetings, but also when we work together on shared documents, we really utilize the Google Docs where we can all access the document, make comments. And we do this so that we can all work together to make the best assessments that are honed by a group effort. So I've seen a big increase in that.
Okay. In addition, as many of you know, we have made some adjustments to the high school program of study. Several factors have influenced the rethinking of our course sequence. Studies on student learning progressions in science have revealed that learners need to build interconnected webs of knowledge over time rather than linear ladders. Related concepts across the different science fields reinforce each other when blended and build deeper understandings. Also, our state science assessment tests students' learning in grade 11 in all the science disciplines. So the purpose of creating the environmental chemistry course and revising our physics course was to weave earth and space sciences and engineering into a 3-year high school program. The result is a comprehensive blending of disciplinary concepts rather than compartmentalizing subjects. Implementation guides have been developed for each K-9 and environmental chemistry science unit. No, I'm going to go back. Each K-9, biology, environmental chemistry, and physics is in progress as well, which provide a sequence of model lessons and activities. And at the elementary levels, teachers are provided with planning guides and slideshows for every lesson. And so far, we've built a comprehensive internal assessment system for courses in grades 6 through 9, which is biology, environmental chemistry, and physics, which is work in progress.
So I will speak to how we did that, like in the process of that. So we've created in the core courses implementation guides, common transfer tasks, common assessments. We've worked together, all the teachers that teach the same course, cross-building. We've worked together to create these things. So we are really teaching the same thing. We are more aligned, I think, than we ever have been previously. So that's been a goal, and we've really made a lot of progress there. And to Leah's point, we work in real time. So when we give the assessments, we're all giving them around the same time, and then we see how we can improve them. We make notes in the Google Doc so we can all see. At times, we've even texted each other. So we've really come a long way with collaboration.
So the creation of our common summative assessment task has helped the science teachers to deepen their understanding and expectations of the standards. As you can see in the slide, when asked, secondary science teachers have demonstrate that they're more comfortable with the standards, they're more comfortable with phenomena-driven science instruction, and they also report greater levels of collaboration, greater alignment of teachers of the same course within and across schools, and they're all recording great success with the implementation of our common transfer tasks. As we develop our unit implementation guides, we held to the following design parameters. Every unit is grounded in an anchoring phenomena or an engineering design problem. Through each unit, students engage in the engineering and science and engineering practices to develop their understandings. Our implementation guides include these common end-of-unit transfer tasks. Also, the middle school environmental chemistry and physics courses all have an additional unit performance tasks. That means that there are 2 common summative assessments for each of these courses. We have also revised and updated our common midterms and finals to align with NGSS for high school biology, chemistry, environmental chemistry, and physics. And for all the high school courses where there is a CP and honors version, our implementation guides articulate additional, more in-depth exploration of topics and lessons for honors. And all of our common assessments are differentiated for our college prep and honors. To provide more insight into our implementation guides, we'll highlight just a couple of units. This is a 4th grade unit. Students investigate the science of waves, the anchoring phenomena. Students watch a video where they see an artist who has created all these different ways that you can see sound and with a bunch of devices. And at the end of the unit, students develop their own devices to visualize the characteristics of different sound waves. In this middle school unit, grade 7, students investigate changes to our local Fairfield ecosystem, the Mill River Estuary, in order to develop understandings of ecological concepts. During the unit, students learn background information on the estuary, the organisms that live there, and ecological concepts. They then include, this unit includes a field study and a trip to the Mill River, which is facilitated by the Mill River Wetland Committee, and students engage in authentic research and data collection. I mentioned a little bit before that idea of the transfer tasks, so we also have these common transfer tasks. In the transfer tasks, students are given information about a different coastal town, plus data, ecological data of that area, and then they're asked to analyze that data and construct an explanation for how overfishing has affected that ecosystem. In this high school environmental chemistry unit, Chemical Reactions in Our World, students investigate the phenomena of oyster die-offs. They study the effects of ocean acidification on oysters' ability to build shells and explore possible solutions. In order to understand this phenomena, students build background knowledge in chemistry concepts, including the carbon cycle, acid-base reactions, factors that affect reaction rates, factors affecting equilibrium, Le Chatelier's principles, for those of you who know your chemistry, and stoichiometry. For the unit performance tasks, students consider engineering trade-offs, criterion constraints, and use chemistry to develop a design solution at a site specific to address oyster die-offs. Excuse me. Okay. I gotta take a breath. Sorry. In our common unit-based transfer tests and midterm and final assessments for course classes are all aligned to the state standards and the NGSS test. We call them transfer tasks because we know that the true measure of student learning is their ability to transfer knowledge and skills to a new context. In our common assessment, students are asked to apply their learning during the unit to a novel phenomena and use practices to make sense of the phenomena. At the high school level, the college prep assessments reflect the expectation of the standards, while honors common assessments reflect expectations beyond the standards, such as more in-depth understanding of content or the use of higher levels of quantitative analysis and explanation. Transfer tests are time-consuming and challenging to create, but they have provided a rich source of professional learning for staff as they have engaged in the thinking, collaboration, and reflection needed to create the valid assessment task and the scoring rubrics to score them. As our students move through multiple years of science instruction, they're becoming accustomed to the transfer tasks and understand that we're asking them to apply their critical thinking, problem-solving skills in order to demonstrate what they have learned. Our locally developed transfer tasks are designed to align with the expectations of our state assessment. This is an example of a state assessment item for grade 5. Students are always provided with a real-world phenomena. They're given some background information, and then students are asked a series of questions that engage them in the practices. In this example, students are asked to choose a testable question, design and carry out an experiment. A lot of times the state assessment gives them a simulation where they actually have to run trials of an experiment. They have to decide which variables they're going to test. They have to collect those trials, and then they have to analyze that data, develop cause and effect relationships, and finally construct an evidence-based explanation. NGSS, as many of you know, NGSS was first administered in 2018. It was field tested. Actually, this year is going to be the first year that we actually have the same test twice. It has changed every year before this. So maybe there will be something we can gather out of the data. It's really important to remember that this assessment assesses three-dimensional performance expectations of the standards over 3 years of instruction. For example, the grade 8 assessment assesses knowledge and skills developed in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. In addition, they're very performance-based rather than knowledge-based. The scores represent students' ability to read and analyze text and data, apply mathematical calculations and reasoning, and think critically about science concepts. They do not test factual recall at all. These are our scores that we presented to you in the fall. And so this isn't anything new. Overall, 66.8% of our students in grade 5, 8, and 11 met or exceeded proficiency as compared to in 2023. For the state of Connecticut, 48.5% of all students met or exceeded proficiency in 2023 as a frame of reference. Next one. In addition to our core NGSS aligned courses, the science department offers a rich variety of elective courses at the high school level. These include our AP courses in biology, chemistry, AP Physics 1, AP Physics 2, and AP Physics C, and environmental science. We also offer semester electives in human anatomy and physiology, forensics, cosmos, planets, oceans, the marine science of Long Island Sound, dangerous planet, chemistry of medicines, and nutritional chemistry. Oh, and the physics of music. I forgot that one. Over the past couple of years, we've worked closely with the amazing team from the Mill River Wetland Committee to revise and update the Mill River experiences for grades 2, 4, and 5, and 7 to better align with curricular goals of NGSS standards. Mill River experience is now embedded into our implementation guides and fit seamlessly into our units. These programs provide our students with assured hands-on labs in the classroom and during field experiences. The Audubon Center also provides an assured third grade field experience for all our students at Southport Beach to study our local coastal ecosystem. The Discovery Museum provides optional programming for Fairfield Public Schools through a town grant. This year, we were able to support a planetarium shows for our students enrolled in the redesigned physics course. The planetarium director created a custom show aligned to our curricular goals, specifically around the solar system, stars, and evidence for the formation of the universe. In conclusion, you can see the science department has done an incredible amount of work over the past 4 years to align our program to the standards and strengthen coherence and consistency across all courses. There are some issues and questions that still need to be addressed. We know that in order for students to be successful in science, they need a strong foundation of science learning in elementary school. In the elementary school, there's much learning to be done and time is limited, and this often puts pressure on the school day. However, scientific literacy begins in early childhood and continues through elementary school, and students are ready to reason about science in early childhood. Without ensured instruction in early childhood, students develop gaps in understanding that can create misconceptions that are very difficult to overwrite in later instruction. The grade 8 NGSS test reflects a much higher level of rigor and complexity in student understanding than was required in the past. And success there depends upon a strong foundation of science learning in elementary school. We also know that for students to be successful in science, they need ensured instruction in the standards. The grade 11 NGSS exam tests students on content from life science, earth science, space science, and physical science. We will continue to align our curriculum, instructional practice, and assessments to the standards. However, we also hope to improve student participation in an NGSS-aligned core science curriculum sequence, such as 9th grade biology, 10th grade environmental chemistry, and 11th grade physics. Students cannot perform well in a state assessment if they have not had instruction on the content assessed. The next steps for the science department include the following. For secondary science, continue the iterative process of implementing, reviewing, and improving our assessments and implementation guides. Continuing to calibrate our scoring on our common assessments. We'd like to develop anchor sets for scoring on our common assessments, as well as explore the development of a high school career pathway. And we're also looking to develop common labs for our courses as well. For elementary science, next steps include the development of common unit assessments, those transfer tasks that I mentioned before, as we have done in secondary. We're going to start working on those in the elementary school as well. Development of unit-based text sets to support literacy instruction in science, and the development of implementation guides for pre-K science. Professional learning for all teachers of science will continue to focus on instructional best practices that promote student learning. And at this point, we invite any questions or comments you may have about the science curriculum.
Mrs. Guernsey.
Thank you so much for this presentation. And I just wanted to say I'm so incredibly excited about what's happening in the area of physics. I was really happy to see the introduction of Physics C, obviously, and then the Physics of Music, which doesn't show up here, but I was under the impression that it was being taught at Walter Fitzgerald. Thank you. So
it's going to be taught next year, and all. I forgot to mention it. And Physics of Music is next year. We just got approved to run it as an ECE course with Quinnipiac University. So students who take that Physics of Music elective will be able to earn 4 credits from Quinnipiac. I think it's a great alternative for kids who might not traditionally have taken AP Sciences. So it's a course for non-majors. So I'm very excited about that.
Thank you. And clearly you're doing something right, because I was just kind of doing a little bit of like napkin math with the physics over the past 3 years. And when I took an average of like the number of students that were taking physics over the past 2 years and compared it to this year, It's like over a 60% increase, I think. I mean, it's just enormous, the exposure, the additional exposure that our students are having to physics specifically. And I'm just excited to see what happens when we add in the new physics, or when we continue to add in the music of physics course with an ECE credit. And I'm interested, I didn't sort of crunch this, but I'm interested in seeing what kind of impact the environmental chemistry has in the same way. So thank you for your work that you're doing to inspire our students to try courses that may have been intimidating to them in the past. Thank you.
Mrs. Flynn?
Thank you for the presentation and all that you do. Just a little bit of a follow-up to Mrs. Guernsey, and please ignore my ignorance if this has been discussed. I was looking at the course enrollments. When you look at our chemistry course in 2021-22, we had 527 students enrolled, and then it dropped to 184, now 113. I'm assuming that new courses are offered that meet requirements, or did we just see people not liking chemistry?
No, what we did is we created the environmental chemistry course, which ran for the first time last year. So those kids are choosing now, all 10th graders are choosing between the CP or honors version of chemistry or environmental chemistry.
Thank you for the clarification. Isn't there also because there's a jump to the AP Chem as well? I've noticed in the data that people jumped to AP Chem. And
actually, we have a large number of sophomores who are taking AP Chemistry as well. When I got here, they weren't allowed to take it without approval, but now it's just open. AP Chemistry has changed a lot over the years. I think it's almost like what used to be honors chemistry when I went to school. So they're okay. And so we have a huge number of sophomores taking AP Chemistry, and they're doing great.
Thank you for that. Mrs. Maxon Kennelly.
Hi, thank you. A few things. This is not going to come as a surprise to any of the other staff members who are here. So there's one part that you said that really sticks with me, and I would just like to get you to speak to this point again. You, at one point, talk about needing this strong foundation of science learning. And yet, on the other hand, I would say there's almost a denigration of memorizing, of learning, of having access to science that you know, that is just straight up knowledge. And I am hoping you can speak to that, because we just went through a whole year with the ELA curriculum of the vital nature of knowledge. And so I don't like hearing knowledge being denigrated as, well, we're skill-based, we're going to standards, we're not here for rote memory. The presentation includes reference to this is not about rote memorization, yet if you don't have that, it damages aspects of curriculum accessibility later. And I'm perfectly willing to say that that's not quite what you meant, but that is what's in the presentation. And I was hoping you could speak to that.
No, the presentation, when I said it's not about rote memorization, is about the assessments. The state assessment does not test rote memorization. So students need to be prepared to be successful in the state assessment by seeing assessments that are different. So I would say what happens is students get a mix of assessment types in their classrooms. Some strictly focused on content, but the assurance that we have assessment tasks aligned to our standards helps make sure that they're successful. So I feel like you're putting words in my mouth, because I never denigrated content knowledge in any way. I am a science person. I love science. Content knowledge is very important. What I also did say in the presentation is that in instruction, the research has shown that kids need to engage in learning as scientists in order to develop deep understandings of science content. So they'll go hand in hand. The point is that you can't separate them.
If I could only add, and it is no surprise to your previous, and I fully agree. One of the things I think that comes up, which I've witnessed in the science department, is when Justine talks about how scientists do their work, no scientist sits down and guesses and just uses the skills that they know. They draw on an extensive background knowledge of science in order to do that work. And that's the content knowledge and what I call the content or the knowledge building stuff, that they would not be able to do these phenomenon-based experiments or practices and engineering practices without that background information. They'd be lost. There'd be a vacuum of simply skills without knowing where you're going next.
And that's all. And again, all I was looking to clarify is that this board, and I know this staff, but that is what came across to me, is we don't test for content. And what a huge mistake. Again, I understand what NGSS, but we're building to that. But you've got to build on a foundation of content and of knowledge, and all of the, science who are experts in their field, they know stuff, to put it in a non-scientific way.
Exactly what I was trying to say. And I think it's an important question as well for the public to understand. I think there's no longer the questions in terms of an assessment like define something and be marked right or wrong on that. It's more of the application of it, but you can't do the application without being able to know what that thing is.
And of course, there are also the bigger ramifications on something like evidence-based reading and writing on the SAT, and having that background knowledge of terms and comfort level. It absolutely impacts our students' graduation rates, if they can't do that. So thank you for letting me get on my soapbox. I was not meaning to insult you, but I just wanted to be explicit about that. I was hoping you could speak to what we're learning from our test results. I'm not overly interested in our comparisons to the state. I expect Fairfield to be better than the state. I would always more interested in a comparison to Fairfield County, which isn't in here, but that's kind of more for a data presentation. I'm happy to let that go. But what have we learned and what have we changed as a result of our several rounds of this testing?
Yeah, I'll just say that what we have learned is that the state science assessment actually hasn't been the same test yet. So there, we're science people. We know what valid experiments look like, right? You need to have a constant variable in order to compare. We haven't had that yet. One thing that we have now as a tool for us is we have the interim assessments from the state. Our staff has been working on implementing them with students. Right now, they're really great for teachers to see the type of questions that students are asked, to get students to get a little practice with the types of assessment items. I would love, if you would like, I could come back another time and do a presentation with you on the assessment items. Maybe you'd like to take one. The 8th grade test is extremely challenging. I think everyone would be really impressed with the level of work, content knowledge, and skills that are tested on that assessment. So I hope that answers your question.
So it doesn't sound like we can tell yet because the sand has been shifting.
It's changed every year. And these assessment items aligned to NGSS are very challenging to create because you need to provide students with a phenomenon, right? And then they need some data, and then they need to apply their content knowledge in order to explain that. They're just it's not, the definition for an atom it's just not the same thing. So they're really challenging to write. So the quality of the items has been improving. So that's kind of where we are.
I can only add the thing different about NGSS is that it takes a lot of information and tests it once at each level. This is dissimilar to Smarter Balance, which tests grade level each year. So Justine said it earlier in the presentation. In 8th grade, they're tested on all the skills prior to that, and I think that's a learning piece of how we keep science growing on each other cumulatively, and being able to know where we're going to be in 8th grade because we don't have a 7th grade score and a 6th grade score.
Okay, thank you. I just have 2 last quick questions. First, I have to ask, on these common summatives, which I know have taken a tremendous amount of time to create, don't you worry about cheating?
Meaning that
students talking like, I've already taken it, here's what's on the common summative.
Yeah, so especially because they are able to use notes on some of them. So we've taken measures, for example, like collecting all the papers when they're done so they can't write down notes, share it with their friends. So we've taken those test security precautions. But yeah, again, I mean, they are going to remember things. They might talk about it, but that could be really with any assessment. So,
Well, but not if they aren't, not if there are multiple versions of a common summative or there's some that's again to me always been the huge downside of common summatives is whoever takes it first is at a disadvantage from whoever takes it subsequently.
Being that they're phenomenon driven, I'd only add it probably takes more work to memorize exactly what there's not one and right. It's probably
It's amazing the time students will put into exactly that.
to simply just do the task, and then you know it at that point if you're able to articulate it on the paper.
So I'd like to just speak to this a little. The way they're written is they're given, first of all, it's a scenario they haven't seen, but it's similar to something we've done in class. And they're given a reading, a background, they're given all the background knowledge. Then they have to work with that. So each student's work is going to be so individual based on how they work their way through it and the data that they're using to analyze it, because we give them multiple sets of data and ask them to just support their thinking. And there isn't one right answer. They have to match the data with their thinking. So if they mismatch, then they don't get the credit for it because we see that they don't. It's really, these assessments are created in a way that they can show us their thinking.
Sure.
So I just want to say too, the data has not shown that they're, so for example, if I give, my first class, they don't score lower on average than my later class. So it's not showing that.
Thank you so much. I had to ask that. And then my last question is, again, the same question I ask with every status update is what do you see as a need going forward? Like where are you not being best served currently, and what do you see as needing a change going forward?
Well, as I mentioned, one issue that we have in the high school is that not all students are taking core science coursework. Right now.
I'm sorry, can I interrupt you right there? Can you explain, people understand what is core, what is not core?
Well, so this is the thing is when I arrived here, we really didn't have a core science program. The only course that all students took was biology, and then they could kind of go anywhere. So right now, that's been the kind of the core of my work is building a core in that students take biology in 9th grade, they take chemistry or environmental chemistry in 10th grade, and then we're trying to encourage physics for 11th grade, right? And again, our physics course has been redesigned. It's not the physics course that I took or any of you probably took. It's an interdisciplinary course. It includes astrophysics. It aligns to the state standards. So includes some other topics. Physics is a very broad field. And traditional physics only focus on some narrow, Newtonian physics, kinematics. So that's kind of what we've been trying to do is build a core, because that if the students follow that core progression, then they will receive instruction on all the standards. If they don't, if they choose to take forensics, right, that forensics doesn't align to NGSS at all. So then they're going into an 11th grade exam, state assessment, and they haven't learned that content at all.
Thank you. I did have one other quick question. I noticed on the chart that we got of class enrollment, physics honors. I don't recall our offering physics. I know we did about a decade and a half ago, and then it was taken away and the students only had the choice of physics or AP. So I just say personally, I'm delighted that it's back, but I just don't recall that being a topic.
Last year, I brought a presentation to the board where we talked about the redesigned physics course and how we were changing the units up. And also we said that we wanted to offer it as college prep and honors, because prior to that, there was just one version of physics. So we did bring that to you last year.
Be the second thing in the last week that I've forgotten. So thank you.
Mr. Krasnoff?
Thank you for all your work. And I'm sorry if I'm ignorant with this question, but I keep hearing you say core and base instruction. Are we giving a lot of that in K through 8, or are we just expecting them in high school to then take the core classes?
Yeah, well, it's just a difference in the structure, right? K through 8, there's only one science course that students can take. As I can say, when I arrived here in 2019, the only required course that kids took was ninth grade biology. That was the only option for ninth graders. And I think right now, I will go to the juniors. Juniors don't have to take physics. They can take something else. And which is, it's a delicate balance between providing students with the flexibility to choose what they're interested in and with us wanting to ensure that they have instruction aligned to the standards. And I don't have that's talk about an issue and a challenge that needs to be worked out. I don't have the answer to that because it's a bigger question for the community at large, really. What do we want out of our science program?
So in K through 8, are we exposing them to some of those other things, even though it's one course? Or are we just working towards these, I think you called them band tests?
Well, we're working on the standards that are outlined in the framework. The NGSS are standards for assessment. But there's a lot in the standards, so there's a lot of content to be covered in K8. But again, going back to the way we designed our units, we do the standards through students exploring phenomena, so they also get to see examples of the content out in the real world, and they engage, and some of our units are engineering design focused, so they actually design a solution to a problem associated with that unit.
Okay, thank you.
I can just piggyback to what you said before about if students don't take physics in junior year, they're not getting the standards. They will get the standards if they take it senior year.
True, but then the assessment's already gone, like the state assessment. Yes, so it depends what's important to us.
Right.
That's all I'm saying is it depends what's important to us as a community to make those decisions. But again, if we're looking for, if our number one goal is to increase test scores, well, then you really would say students have to take these courses. If that's not our number one goal, that's something to discuss.
Mrs. Flynn.
Just some quick clarifying questions. When you talk about the K through 5 instruction, can you give me an idea of how much time each day is set aside for science, not STEAM?
Science is set aside for 45 minutes. Each day is set aside for science or social studies. So they alternate between the science and social studies units throughout the year.
Okay, so when you talk about trying to make that consistent across our K-5 levels, are you talking about what's being instructed, how it's being instructed, the time frame? Are you seeing a lot of variation? Maybe it's for Dr. Zavachansik. Is it a scheduling issue or is it a content creation of that issue, lesson planning?
It is scheduled in each building schedule, K through 5. I would say the coherence behind it is that there's a lot more freedom in an elementary day than in a secondary day, right? No bells ring. Students don't move from class to class. So decisions can be made in a classroom to say, we didn't finish, for example, our math test, so we're going to extend that 15 minutes. And I'm making numbers up at this point. That inevitably cuts into another block that either has to be made up somewhere else or that day doesn't get the full 45 minutes.
And we can't add minutes, so that's hard. Are you seeing struggles with our students as they enter 6th grade and are then in a science classroom for one subject that's taught by ideally a different teacher? Are you seeing then a more intense ability to give that instruction versus elementary school?
Well, 6th grade, again, going back to the struggles that Dr. Zavajancic just talked about, there's a lot of pressure on the elementary schedule, right? And there's prioritization of subjects. And unfortunately, science and social studies end up kind of losing time. And that happens everywhere. That's not a Fairfield thing. That's happened in other districts I've been in as well. Sixth grade is the first time that we students are guaranteed to have a science class, in their schedule every day. So I'm not really sure what you're asking. Is it intense for the students or?
I guess it's more, are you intending to kind of make elementary school look like that? Are you trying to make it a little more rigid for our K through 5 that we're seeing science instruction more regularly? Yeah.
We have a program of study for the elementaries that we expect to be run. And like I said, decisions do get made appropriate many times. So I'm not saying that in a way that someone is simply saying we have this program of work in the elementary school and we don't have to follow it. But there are decisions that get made. So we do want it to see 45 minutes every other day in one of the content areas, right? Social studies or science at this point in each of our elementary schools.
Oh, and just to clarify, when I see, a lack of consistency, I think it's just clarifying what that consistency is that you're looking for, so we know when you come back to us. So thank you again. Mr. Lee.
Just really quick, for the person that's not into the chemistry and biology of the world, I think the electives you have in high school really takes a lot of that pressure off, where they still can require the science requirement. Are there more thoughts about adding other classes like Dangerous Planets type classes that still get them involved in the sciences, but not as challenging?
Yeah, one thing we were thinking about doing is building a career pathway for some fields in science and engineering, which might include additional elective courses that students might be interested in. That's still to be worked out and to develop, so I don't want to get too ahead of us right now. But yeah, and again, our physics of music course is new, and that's another example. Like we're always trying to think of other ways to bring students into the science through kind of our elective courses.
Okay. Thank you so much for your presentation and your time tonight. Thank you. Okay. Music, you're up.
We'll get, I have nothing new to add about status review. So Mr. Robert Hughes, our pre-K-12 music coordinator, is here to go through his status update for his curriculum.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks so much for having me here. Excited to provide a status update on the music department curriculum this evening. Also looking forward to just providing some updates about the the department as a whole. I'd like to just begin by framing the music department's philosophy and vision a little bit. Oh, there we go. So this language was included in the approved curriculum document from 2019. I just wanted to take a second to highlight the department's core beliefs, right? We believe that music is essential for a complete and well-rounded education program for all of our students in Fairfield. We believe that music uniquely integrates both cognitive and creative skills. We believe in the artistic process of creating, performing, and responding, all of which were the underpinning of the last review cycle. We believe music is an emotionally responsive discipline, as it fosters social and emotional skills such as self-confidence, leadership, and cooperative learning. And of course, we believe that our program ultimately develops well-rounded, artistically literate, and culturally responsive citizens. In pursuit of that philosophy, the music teachers support pre-K through 12 music programming at 16 of our schools, servicing about 7,200 music students across the entire spectrum. 2,800 of those students are instrumentalists, so that means they play basically a band or a string instrument, representing almost 40% of the students in the district participating in instrumental music. As I briefly mentioned, the last review cycle centered a lot around aligning the National Court Arts standards. Previous to that, Connecticut did have a framework for music education. It was sort of most recently adopted and updated in the mid-90s, so is in much need of a refresh. So when the National Core Art Standards came around, Connecticut was sure to adopt them. And a lot of what happened in the 2019 review was making sure that our work centered around those four pillars of the artistic processes of creating, performing, responding, and connecting. Beyond those standards, alignment, there were a couple other targeted enhancements the department was looking to make at that time. For example, they wanted to make sure that we had focus meters in our secondary education level, which essentially is just assured time signatures being introduced at certain grade levels across like the 6th to 12th grade spectrum. They also created skill level benchmarks, which are pretty much just criteria for proficiency of content and skills for all of the student performers in a grade 4 or 5, depending on what year they were starting, all the way up through grade 12. That pretty much just assess their rhythmic accuracy, note range, scales, musical expression, so on and so forth, to make sure they were progressing at the appropriate rate. Since the adoption of the 2019 curricula, the department has finalized the common assessments to match up with the skill level benchmark. So we can actually assess what students are at what skill level. And we've really started to get a lot of focus on our program coherence. We've, of course, like every other content area, have a number of teachers, working in schools across the horizontal as well as the vertical spectrum. And we want to make sure that our students are well matched to progress to the next level and all having similar experiences. In addition to that, we modified the bel canto voicing parts to include tenor and bass voicings. And as you're all aware, we are moving forward with some new courses in the upcoming school year for guitar studio and musical theater explorations. I want to just provide a brief program interview by level, since music education instruction looks a little different at each different level. So in elementary school, for example, we start with our earliest learners at ECC, and they receive one 30-minute music class per 6-day rotation. When students enter elementary school, the K4 students receive 2 music classes per 6-day rotation. And 5th grade students receive 1 music class, but then they participate in a whole group chorus. So if there's 5 elementary schools at 5 5th grade classes at an elementary school, they will meet combined to make one unified chorus once in that 6-day rotation. We begin strings instruction in 4th grade with lessons in before school rehearsals, and then band instruction begins in 5th grade with lessons in before school rehearsals. A lot of our focus at the elementary level is really on immersion. We want our students to be absorbing, to be creating, to be producing music. And we start this in December by having all of our 5th grade students go up to the respective feeder high school and observe a matinee performance of the holiday concerts, right? So the Candlelight or Carillon that so many of you have seen over the years, they have an opportunity to experience that, which really creates a lot of excitement in the performing arts, generates curiosity, which is really exciting for them. Then in April, we have band, choir, and orchestra students from our middle schools go down to their feeder elementary school to perform for their 5th grade students. So this gives them a little demonstration of the middle school offerings that they're going to have when they enter in 6th grade. We're obviously very excited to offer all of our middle school students music, but it might look a little different. If you're in a band in your elementary school that has 20 students in it, when you matriculate up to 6th grade, all of a sudden you've got 90 performers in a room, and that's a different experience. So we want to create some excitement and give them a little bit of a taste of what they're going to experience the next year. And then in early June, we take some of our high school musicians down to the feeder elementary schools to provide instrument demos, right? So you have really high quality high school students demoing the instrument that students can start. They hear the instrument individually, they hear the instruments together, and it helps them make a more informed decision about what instrument that they might want to start. So not only does all this immerse the elementary students, but also creates a really nice full circle for our students, right? If you're going all the way up into, high school as a performer, you get to go back to your middle and in elementary schools, which is really nice. And of course, we want elementary schools to be participating. So they have, their annual winter and spring concerts, school-wide town halls, sing-alongs, assemblies, patriotic days, so on and so forth. As we move up to our middle school, we start to, as we move up to our middle school, we start to develop grade level ensembles. So each grade level has a band, choir, orchestra, and then we also have a keyboarding course. We continue our instrumental lessons, and we start to sprinkle in some opportunities for extension, right? So the students can audition if they'd like for jazz band, chamber choir, chamber orchestra, a cappella, those sorts of things. And similar to elementary school, we want to provide a lot of rich articulation experiences for all of our students. So we will take all of our 8th grade students to also see the same holiday concerts in December, Candlelight and Caroline at their respective feeder high schools. And this is a great demonstration and a reminder of the program that they're going to hopefully be enrolling in just a couple of weeks when they're registering for high school classes. In addition to the articulation, we want to start to provide some extension and out-of-school opportunities for students. And we do that in a couple different ways. So we've partnered with the Metropolitan Opera to provide our teachers with access to Met HD Live. That provides students tickets to see a live opera in a local movie theater. So we use the movie theater in Milford. We have professional development for our staff with world-class performers and artists. And it also gives every teacher in the district unlimited access to digital resources like performance videos and a variety of interdisciplinary resources. Beyond that, students get to travel and get evaluated at adjudicated festivals at places like Sacred Heart and Lake Compounds. There are performances out in the community, like the Shop and Stroll or the tree lighting in Fairfield. We've got students that are singing the anthem at Fenway Park, attending professional Broadway performances. And in the past couple of years, we've developed a collaboration with the Boston Children's Chorus, where our middle school chamber choirs get to perform with them. We have participants across all of our district middle schools in the district-wide honors ensemble program and so forth. So we have a lot of opportunities where students can access music inside and beyond the classroom. As we move on to high school, we now are introducing leveled ensembles. So instead of it being organized by grade level, we have ensembles organized essentially by ability level, and that's really where a lot of those skill level assessments come into play to place students into the right ensembles. We also continue our instrumental lesson program, and then we have a variety of additional electives available for students: music theory, technology, voice, guitar, and so on and so forth. If I were to talk about all of the things the high school students do, we'd be here for another hour or two. So they're very, very active participants, both learners inside, outside of school, in the community. They participate in many articulation events in the district, which is really important. They have performances at premier venues like Radio City Music Hall, Walt Disney World. And one of the things that we're all really proud of is that we get the students out in the community a lot, right? We see them at the beginning of the school year every year at the FPS convocation. They just recently did the Fairfield inauguration this past November. They do the holiday shop and stroll, the tree lighting, Rotary Club recognition, Holocaust Memorial every year, Dogwood Festival, Memorial Day parades, so on and so forth. So we really love showcasing the students that have worked so hard and have really truly deserve the spotlight. And what better way to do that than to get them out in front of the community? So we're really happy to be doing that. So as we look forward to the future and what we want to do next, as Dr. Zavajensic said earlier in his lead up, the curriculum was adopted in May 2019, and a lot has happened in the world since then. We had to navigate the pandemic. The music department has had some changes in leadership, all of which has impacted the fidelity of the implementation of the curriculum. So as we move forward, we've kind of got a renewed focus on actually, with fidelity, using these common assessments we've developed for the skill level benchmarks and using that data to inform opportunities for growth in our department. You'll see a bullet up there about middle school. So we're having some conversations in our department now about the best, most effective middle school music structure. We are so happy and so lucky to be able to provide all students at the middle school level with 3 years of music education, but it's also equally important to ensure that students are getting placed in the music settings that are really authentically musically enriching for them. As we continue, to think about ways to do that, we have to recognize that an integral part to moving the curricula forward is also moving teacher learning forward. So while I'm super privileged to be here, speaking to you as the department leader of the music department, the teachers are the ones in the classrooms every day, generating the excitement, developing the foundational skills for the students to get out in front of you, out in the community, making the really impressive performances that everyone gets to witness. And how we move the teacher learning forward is going to really inform what our students are able to do. So we've kind of assembled a strategic approach to that because we have a lot of different things going on in the department. We've organized it in sort of a 3-year spiral. So we have a townwide music festival, which I'll talk about in a moment, but whatever strand is delivering the festival that year, that's pretty much their professional development focus for the year, right? Maybe the year after that, we're focusing heavily on curriculum and assessment, review, revision, focus, instructional practices, et cetera, et cetera. And then the third year would be bringing in some external presenters, right? So it's easier to capture and plan out external presenters for a strand if we're doing a focused strand in 1 year of professional development. And then also lets us sort of tighten up some of the nuts and bolts of the department or that strand. Sometimes it's as simple or it's like equipment repair and going through our inventory and making sure things are organized as they should be so that our students can be successful. And so it's striking the proper mix and balance of all those things that allow our students and our teachers to be able to continue to make some growth. Just briefly, I did want to highlight, we did have the Townwide Choral Festival a week and a half ago or so. This is an annual district-wide music department event. It rotates with the strand each year. This year was a choral strand. We had over 550 musicians participating across all grade levels from grade 5 all the way up through grade 12. All schools had students there. It's really an impressive undertaking and an annual celebration of music education in our community. I have a short video, but it's like 2.5 minutes and I think it's late. So we can move forward or...
It is in the packet.
Yes.
Unless you want us to play it now, we know there's more on the agenda. So I'll direct it. Okay, half of it will play.
So as they cue this up, it's the opening number of the Townwide Festival. It's called Shastaloza. It's a South African tune and is being conducted by our guest conductor, Colton Blake, who we brought in from Dallas-Fort Worth to work with our students. So just a taste of what we have to offer. And, the festival is just one of many reasons why Fairfield Public Schools Music Department is recognized as one of the best communities for music education. That designation places the Fairfield Music Education Department in the top 5% of music education programs in the country. And locally, I'd like to also mention that Fairfield sends more students than every single district in the state, except for one, to our All-State Festival, which will be next week in Hartford. So we have a really well-supported, really robust music education community in Fairfield, which I'm very happy to be a part of. And I thank all of you, Superintendent Dastani, for supporting our program and letting us do what we do. I'd be very happy to take no questions.
Bravo. Mrs. Guernsey.
Thank you, as always, for your presentations. And I just wanted to make one comment because it wasn't included in this packet. And I just wanted to applaud the work that the music department has done. You mentioned it briefly, but recovering from COVID, in speaking to other districts that struggled, they started the same point as us. And we were so proactive about providing those experiences that inspired our students to either get back into music or try some, to make up for some of that enormous dip. So thank you for that. And it was a lot of creative problem solving. And I know it involved not just the music teachers, but also the students. So appreciate that hard work.
Yeah, thank you. And that's also a testament, honestly, to all of the building administrators too, because we've really ramped up our articulation experiences and efforts, and that requires us to pull students from class a lot and push into other schools a lot. And all of the principals have been so incredibly generous in allowing us to facilitate that. So a huge prop to them as well.
Okay, no question. Actually, oh, sorry. Mrs. Maxine Kennelly.
All right, just quickly, first of all, I was going to also say what Mrs. Guernsey said. So again, appreciate what what is very direct work to try to get our enrollment numbers back up and the commitment to the program. So applauding that. And also I appreciate the question I'd had written down was about the middle school keyboarding course. So to know that that's something you're looking into going forward, just appreciate that and kudos. Then it was just one other question was when in terms of that bringing the older kids down, do you ever tap into the senior internship in terms of having those students come down and work directly with elementary school kids?
We do, most of the time, a lot of our really active senior students are really helpful in going to a lot of other levels. Most of the time that's happening later in the school year, and they're actually helping the teachers. It comes at a busy time where, the teachers are trying to get ready for spring concerts, so on and so forth. And, those students are often interested in exploring music in a post-secondary fashion. So they want to see, well, what can I peek behind the curtain a little bit and see what it's like to be a music educator? And so they're usually helping facilitate stuff through the music teacher more so than directly with the students.
Well, excellent, because that's, of course, we're talking about teacher shortage. So the more that we can do to support that as well. But thank you.
I just want to acknowledge, similar to our athletic directors, Mr. Hughes, and the countless number of hours, evenings, and weekends that he commits to the music program for the success of all our students and our staff. So I want to thank you for that as well, because I think sometimes that goes unnoticed, the amount of time and effort that you put in annually to our music programs.
Thanks, I appreciate that.
Thank you very much. Okay, moving on. Approval of increasing educator diversity plan. Recommended motion that the Board of Education approve the increasing educator diversity plan as presented on March 12, 2024. Can I get a motion, please? Mrs. Maxine Kennelly, seconded by Mr. Lee. Any discussion on this item? Mrs. Maxine Kennelly.
Just one quick question. At what point, based on whatever data, is there the process for reevaluating the plan?
First, the plan needs to be submitted and be accepted by the state.
Yeah, I'm kind of jumping ahead at that point.
You're jumping way ahead. So Kanika probably would be able to answer when we would reevaluate.
Yeah, so that is correct. So we're going to, if approved, we'll submit the plan tomorrow morning, and then we'll know by April 15th if there are any revisions that the state is asking us to do. And then the committee will be hardworking to get the plan in place.
So again, based on what data would it prompt that committee to reevaluate steps that we might be hearing about, as in, because I assume if there are changes to the plan, we have to vote on it.
Right. So as soon as we know that there needs to be some changes, we'll come back to you. So the next board meeting after April 15th. What is that?
I think to your question, I think this is going to be a standing committee of folks that will be looking at things throughout next year and the year after, make adjustments based on the data. I think it's also going to be a challenge, as we spoke at the last meeting, after talking with some of our university partners. Unfortunately, there is a continual decline in enrollment in their programs. So we're trying to brainstorm some ideas. I had a meeting last week with the dean, the new dean over at Sacred Heart University, who comes to that position from many years down in South Carolina. So they've had some struggles and they have some ideas as well that they'd like to kick around in hopefully recruiting more students into the education program. So I think this is going to be a collaborative effort, and who knows where we go with it.
Okay, I'm just going to confirm, Kanika, that there was no changes from the first read, right? So before we vote on this, that it is on it as of the first read, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, all right. If there are no other questions, I will take this out to the public for public comment. No comment? Okay, back to the board. All in favor? Motion, Mr. Asa?
I'm an aye. Yes.
I see you. Thank you. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, new business. Establish date and time of Fairfield Ludlow High School and Fairfield Ward High School graduation. Recommended motion that the Board of Education establish Thursday, June 13, 2024 at 6 p.m. as the graduation date and time for Fairfield Ludlow High School and Fairfield Ward High School. Can I get a motion, please? Mr. Peterson, seconded by Mrs. Maxon Kennelly. Is there any discussion? Nod from the audience if this works well for you. Oh, sorry. No, I'm talking to first. Just, I'm not going to make you get out of your seats, but as long as give me a thumbs up out there. Okay, Mr. Lee.
Just curious why it's always been at 6 p.m. and maybe not an hour before or even.
Actually, it hasn't been at 6 p.m. It's been earlier, but this was actually an ask to move it to 6 p.m.
Okay.
Any other questions? Out to the audience. Back to the board. All in favor?
Aye.
Mr. Ace, I see you. Motion passes unanimously. Yay, we have our graduation date, class of 2024. All right. Restaurants, have your phones are open. Reservations are being taken in downtown Fairfield as of right now. Okay. Next item, personal financial management and financial literacy graduation requirement update. Dr. Zavajancic.
Yeah, I'll just start. As you received in the memo from my dated March 22nd, we have looked at and discussed with the department some additional courses with some slight changes to the curriculum could embed all the standards and skills necessary to meet the graduation requirement for financial literacy. We also provided, after extensive work by our IT department, some data that was provided at the table in regards to currently students that have taken those courses that are being asked to be included, as well as those that are currently enrolled, and how many that would capture in meeting the graduation requirement. So it doesn't move the needle much, but that doesn't mean more students would not take the courses if they knew that it would meet the financial literacy graduation requirement. We also want to be very careful in stating that if one of these courses is used as a financial literacy, so to speak, graduation requirement, check off that it would take away, for example, a STEM course. So we have to be very careful. You can't double dip on the course. It can't be both. So that will take extensive work by our school counselors as they work individually with their students on their caseload to make sure that all the graduation requirements are being met, and they do not double count financial literacy in a STEM course as the one and the same.
If I could just take 2 minutes to walk you through the packet, or I should say memo, 2 minutes, with the other data that is in there. So on pages 2 and 3, you will see the enrollment, just if you're wondering how courses are trending. There's other courses in there besides the ones Mr. Testani had mentioned that may fulfill the requirement for financial literacy, which were Intro to Business, AP Macroeconomics. You won't see financial algebra as it's in the middle, but it is a math course. And then you'll see some other courses from the department that there were some inquiries about. So I just gave the information in case folks were still wondering about that. But the four in question are on the Friday packet email that Mr. Testani had sent out publicly. Page 4 lists SCED codes, and just so everybody's aware, SCED code is an identifier that the National Center of Educational Statistics asks us to put on every course that we have in district. So when a course gets approved here, it gets built in our system and we have to label it somehow. So within the packet that was also in the board agenda, the course kit, it lists possible SCED codes that can align with financial literacy. So I just wanted to give you a reporting of what we currently have and where our courses are aligned there. So again, that's page 4 for your information. Page 5, I had gone through a number of districts surrounding us and in the area. The only caveat I would say to this here is it was research on my own. So you never know what's happening internally or what the inference is. This is simply looking at a program of studies and seeing what was listed in there as a possible financial literacy course. So take that information knowing that I did this on my own through a document review only. I did not contact each of these districts and say, is this, do you use anything else or is this a reality?
So outside of Brookfield, New Fairfield, Newtown, all the rest did confirm through a email chain that we had amongst the group that these are the courses that are currently being used in those districts to meet the financial literacy requirement. So as you can see, some are just simply offering the personal finance class and having all students pass through that class. Some have, as discussed, have broadly interpreted and made or are making, similar to what we're proposing, some adjustments to their current curriculum in courses in order to meet the financial literacy requirement.
And then the final document, which was the one Mr. Testani originally mentioned with the data on it, our IT department was able to put this together. This looks at both transcripts, which means students have completed and passed, as well as in progress. So we separated them by 9th graders as well as 10th and 12th. Remember, this requirement begins for class of 2027. So the assumption lies in here that the 10, 11, and 12 didn't have this requirement and may not have been looking. But we wanted to use one cohort just to see what a typical sequence is and what students were taking there. So the column that says earned credit for financial literacy, that is our financial literacy course, the semester financial literacy course, and how many students have taken it successfully. The column next to it, currently taking financial literacy, meaning it's not in the transcript, they still have to pass the course in order for them to fulfill the requirement. The column next to that earns credit for another potential course meeting the financial literacy requirement. That includes Intro to Business, AP Macroeconomics, financial algebra within there. And then finally, similar to the other one, currently taking a class for a potential course meeting the financial literacy requirement, which is what we're discussing. Again, AP Macroeconomics, Intro to Business, financial algebra within there. And then you can see the totals at the end. They can't be added up. They have to be divided, but it's about 52% at both of our comprehensive high schools who have completed or are in the process of completing financial literacy as the course or one of the courses that I had previously mentioned.
Mrs. Maxon Kennelly.
Just one question. In consideration to creating a summer course that could fulfill this requirement? And if not, why not?
So I haven't discussed that with Ms. Terwilliger here, so I should introduce her. She is our business liaison, and I should have done that first for 9 through 12 business ed. We would have to look into what the FTE cost would be for that, as well as signing students up for it. So we have not had that discussion yet.
Jen, are you meaning like an in-person come to school class or online synchronous, or what do you?
I'm not sure if we'd be allowed to do it online. I don't think we would. So this would be in person, but this is for that student who has obviously a very packed schedule, has other interests, wants to fulfill the requirement. And just be curious. Again, I would want it to be something, if we ever did look at this, I would expect it to be something that was the student tuition that they would pay would cover the course, would be my expectation. 5 kids want to take it, we can't offer it. But I would just be interested in see engaging student interest.
I have no other response but that we would need to discuss it. I don't want to speak out of turn without having a deep discussion with the department on its feasibility.
Mr. Krasnoff.
Just a quick question. When do students typically take the AP economics courses?
The AP economics courses are for sophomores, so 10th, 11th, and 12th grade. The macroeconomics is typically taught in the springtime, which leads room to have more of the financial literacy requirements put into that.
Excellent, thank you.
Mrs. Guernsey.
Thank you so much. I'm really happy to see the additional courses that can count for our students. And I think I'm just thinking ahead. I had already sent to the superintendent and Mr. Zavajancic some questions about how these 4 courses are listed both in our program of studies and who can take them. There's sort of some there's some differences between the program of studies and the curriculum documents. So wanting to make sure those are in place. And from my own perspective, I'm interested in seeing these courses open to as many students as possible. So like, for example, I'm trying to look at my questions. Financial literacy is not available to grade 9 in the curriculum documents, but we were offering it to grade 9. I want to make sure that those rising 8th graders understand that it's available to them. In addition, financial algebra is not available in grades 9 and 10. And the requirement for that course is 2 years of math, which clearly some of our students have when they're coming in from middle school. So just making sure we're really clear and opening those doors for our students. The other question I had was about Intro to Business, because that course is not currently available to our grade 11 and 12 students. So wanting to understand if that course could be available, because anything that allows flexibilities for students to meet these the graduation requirements is of an interest of mine. And then I have one follow-up question.
So I'm going to let Ms. Terwilliger answer the intro to business of why it was placed in the program of studies where it is and what could possibly change. I did meet with Dr. Danishevsky earlier before this meeting, and financial algebra can be open, so we would have to make that shift and bring it forward to you, as well as the alignment between the program of studies and the curriculum document, which at this, just to go backwards, there was no financial literacy requirement when we brought that business course forward, and it was a 10 to 12, which came last year. So we can work to make those changes. And
So sorry, before you go on, those are like really 5-minute, don't even need a first read. You're basically like changing one number on the grade span in the curriculum document, right? So, I mean, we could do that quickly if needed, I would assume.
I will redline the document for you so you see that change on it. And
if that's what you're recommending, I don't know.
We will be recommending that. Yep.
That's fantastic. And so just to follow up, the other question that I had is about the communication that will go to our community about these 4 courses. I know our high school students are just bringing in their signed forms right now. Some of them may want to retract that to make the changes that they need to make for their plan going forward. So if you could just tell us a little bit more about how this will be communicated to the students, to their teachers, to the guidance counselors, so that everyone understands what courses are available, how they're counting, and then the nuance that Mr. Testani described about it, being careful of that STEM bucket and communicating that piece too.
We would just have to work closely with Rachel to create a communication that would go out to the entire high school community and 8th grade. Correct. Well, and the incoming high school community. So that, and then with any follow-up questions, really to speak to their school counselor if they need any further clarification.
Thank you. And what is the timeline for that? How quickly can you get something like that out? Because time, I mean, this is obviously a really time sensitive issue.
So we can get that out in the next day or so if under the assumption that the board is going to vote favorably for the red line of changes. So happy to do that in the next day or so.
Wait, you're happy to put this message out before, where's the red line? I'm sorry, I'm confused because these 4 courses are already available. They're not dependent on
Right,
a
but
board vote.
the grade levels, if you're changing and opening it up for 9 through 12.
No, I understand, but I mean, personally, yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, we could. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just talking about timing because I know that, like for my own student, you know, this was due a couple weeks. I mean, people are sitting on these forms because they don't want to sign them because they're not sure how this is going to play out.
Like I said, we can get it out. I mean, if we get it together tomorrow, it'll get out tomorrow afternoon.
Right, thank you.
I just want to speak to this STEM bucket 2 issue. So I see on the back of page 4 of the memo that was at our desk, financial algebra assumes an elective credit in the above data that the student will count the course outside of the STEM graduation requirements. Is that because you're going with the current legislation that doesn't allow this credit to be counted in the STEM bucket?
The assumption there is that all those students are taking it as a STEM credit right now or an elective. I did not go one by one through there, neither did IT, to make sure that it was actually in the elective bucket. It might have been their 3rd year of math.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure that hopefully that gets changed, right, in the current legislation, that you can basically count it however you want and we don't have to worry about the STEM, non-STEM thing anymore. But so that's more about you can't double dip it, basically, right? So
Yes.
that's the point.
Yes.
Yeah.
If I can I have Ms. Terwillinger talk about intro to business for that last question from Ms. Guernsey?
So the business department is very flexible, and student choice is great for getting the students to be creative in ways to meet this requirement. When we first proposed the financial literacy credit, it is only for sophomores, juniors, and seniors when we wrote the curriculum, because we found over the past few years of teaching the course that the freshmen aren't really interested in renting, buying a car, the credit card. They just are not connected enough. So we felt when we brought the curriculum forward that it should have been an upperclassman type course, because the kids realize that they're going out to college, they need to buy a car, they need to get renter's insurance, and how they do this. So that's how the financial literacy credit ended up being a sophomore, junior, and senior class. As for Introduction to Business, that is primarily our 9th and 10th grade class. It is really geared towards 9th and 10th graders. We do a lot with study skills, how to be an productive member of the high school, what a presentation looks like. The skills that we teach in that course does reflect what the state is asking for the financial literacy credit, but it's not really appropriate for a junior and senior who will have matured and have gotten those skills. So we are proposing to keep that Introduction to Business course as a freshman, sophomore course, because the rigor is just different from a freshman to a senior. Does that make sense?
Mr. Lee.
I'm going to agree on that. I'm the minority on this board. My daughter's currently taking financial algebra. I think as a junior and senior, especially what the course is designed for, to prepare these kids for the real world outside. I think the biggest eye-opening thing for her is someone in the class actually volunteered their paycheck and they broke it down, and all of a sudden now everyone's talking about taxes and we pay that much, and you know, and the big assignment was, here's a monthly budget. Right? And it's hilarious, but it's typical. All of a sudden, she went from eating my food to, I can survive on ramen for a couple weeks. So it makes sense to make that a junior.
That's good living.
Type of class. Yeah.
I just want to follow up on the, so I think one of the issues that we have to address, though, is that the program of studies and the docs currently don't align. So that's kind of the urgency. I mean, I guess it's not an urgency if administration understands what we want to happen and everyone's cool with that, but we should have them align, right? I would imagine, because right now they don't.
We will align them. I heard a few weeks ago when this was being discussed that they were already talking about it, so I know they're on board with it. Yes, so if they meet, the question Dr. Hatzis talked about is if they've taken the credit this year, will it apply for their financial literacy requirement? And the answer would be yes. It is the course that we're allowing, and if they've met it, what you don't see on the chart I gave you is transfer credits. I took it off to not complicate it. There's a number of students who come to us from other schools that bring in transfer credits that are similar and sometimes a little bit different that we have to mold into requirements as well. So I would say it matches, we would retroactivate it is the short answer.
Okay, Mr. Krasnov.
So I was reading through the CSDE packet. I noticed it looks like they count DECA competition as satisfying the requirement. Is that correct?
Can you give me what page you're on?
There aren't, page 6.
It does say the financial literacy component of the DECA and FBLA, which we do offer at both schools. Right now, those two groups are volunteer positions by the advisors. I'm not really sure what that would look like. I know this year that both DECA and FBLA doubled their membership and competitors. So I'm a little hesitant on opening that up. I think it would be great, but I'm afraid that it's going to be not manageable for volunteer positions after school.
Understood. I was just thinking instead of maybe summer school option, that might be a really good alternative.
I have seen districts that are offering this DECA towards it, but I can't speak to or a paid FTE that's running that. Anyone else? So I just have a quick questions that I also wanted to run through from the CSD packet and they don't need to spend a lot of time on these, but independent study. In the CSD packet, there's a number of other avenues, so I just want to check them off quickly of yes, no, interested, not, yet why not, independent study.
Can you just tell me what page you're on again, just so we're working off the same document? So intro to business was a yes, personal.
$, we're going through that little second bullet list. So existing courses, check mark, great. Independent study aligned with financial literacy standards, work-based experience, the supervised agricultural experience, any of those other avenues. The supervised agricultural, I got educated. I mean, do you know how many titles are in a supervised, literally? Tractor driver, nursery worker, horseback riding instructor, bait tackle person. I mean, there's a lot in there. I'm asking.
We don't do those. We do have
Aquaculture and the VOAG magnet programs, things like that. I mean.
Sure, we have students who go out to Aqua and the others. The other one that was brought to our attention was the unpaid experiential learning program, which is a course. That's the only other one we would consider, the UELP, and there's a few students in that as well.
Paid experience.
So that's our internship program that we offer through the business department. So Harold Mackin, I know when you look at his videos, it's very machinery. He came from Washington State, so he runs that program and provides the safety training for the teachers. But we do have that course listed in the program of studies, and it's out of the business department. There hasn't been a high demand for that. So it was labeled as the internship and career explorations course before our curriculum review. So we just haven't run it this year.
Could get plugged in there.
Well, if the course, I'm not sure I understand the question. If the course runs, it's feasible that it meets the requirements for personal financial literacy.
Questions? Mrs. Guernsey.
I guess just to follow up on Mrs. Jacobson's comment about the aquaculture program specifically, because I know how I think they have a hard time fitting in electives. Is that something you would take a look at in some of their fishery study, or I can't remember what oh my gosh, what is the term for this supervised agricultural experience? But really, it seemed like a lot of them were covered by the great work that's done in those schools. So if that's something that's a problem for them, I'm in the camp of let's make it easier for them, right? If they're meeting those requirements through the programs they're already attending.
I think we'd have to look at so their courses come into our high school as courses as well. They match 1-to-1. So we would have to look at what they're offering. It's interesting, the State Department of Ed put this SCED code list together, and they used Department 19, which is Human Services, as I assume where they're fitting many of these courses. So we don't have any courses currently associated with that department for that. So we would just have to look at their curriculum, I would say, on it and what they're actually learning.
Mrs. Flynn?
Excuse me, I should have probably sent this in advance, but I'm just reading this in detail as well. Do we have school stores at either of our high schools? Is this like a past thing? Sorry. Like a school, I apologize.
I can speak for Ludlow that we have a school store that's run by the Falcon Council, like our student government, to sell mostly just spiritware. We, with all the healthy guidelines from the state, that kind of ruined any chance that we had of selling food. Back in the day, we used to sell all kinds of candy and soda. We can't do that now.
Just thinking maybe a little bit outside the box. I know some of our local private schools have, little school stores that sell gear, and is that worth exploring? Or I don't know. I just read it and thought it was worth asking.
One thing I'll say about the data that's in your sheet, which you don't have others, we did a more thorough dive by adding more classes as we went, just to see what would happen experimentally. And it moved it by less than a percentage point because those kids were already in the mix of intro to business or AP macroeconomics and so forth. So I think it went from like 52 to maybe 53%, but it didn't move the needle pretty much at all.
Thank you for entertaining the question.
The Ward DECA does have a store also that we sell things.
Thank you.
So much for that update. Super helpful. Happy to put these on whenever you need. And I think the most important piece right now is making sure people understand that they've already met it or how they're counting it, or so they're not thinking they have to take something else.
So just to be clear in the communication, we're leaving intro to business where it stands in terms of 9th and 10th graders, according to the recommendation of the department. Is that correct?
What it is in the curriculum document, and that also is actually what is in the program of studies, so that one does match.
Yep.
The question was, should it be 11 and 12? And it sounds like that would not be a recommendation.
That is not the department's recommendation. If the document were to come forward to you, because we need to add certain standards in to make sure we're meeting those 6 or 7 bullet points in the documents that may not be actually explicitly written in the curriculum.
All right, thank you. Anyone, everyone's good? Okay. All right. Discussion and update working draft Board of Education 2025-2035 long range facilities plan. I'll keep this really quick, guys. This is really just a check-in with Facilities Committee has been meeting a couple times a month on updating our plan, as you are aware. So I'll just keep this brief in terms of what we've covered. And I'll allow, Mr. Krasnoff or Mr. Lee, if you want to chime in, that's fine. So we've been meeting with administrators. We've met with 6 administrators. I know that was important to the board that we hear some feedback. So we've met with 6 so far, and we will continue to meet with the rest of them so that we have input on their buildings. We have started to hear, in my opinion, some overarching themes in some of these interviews and feedback. The 6 that we've met with are elementary level, so this is specific to that level right now. But really the importance of the right balance and mix of those small spaces with the large spaces. So there are certain things that need small spaces, but just the trend these days have been to appreciate larger spaces that can be multi-purpose, rotated out, have multiple people in there and changed as needed. So that's something that we're grappling with. Special programming, importance of including that in our plans going forward if we're going to have it in a building and have the right support. I feel like my microphone's not working well. Is my microphone not working well? Okay. Build for that and the right support spaces to support it. We've added into some of the actual building spaces a place for ECC, because ECC was not in this document before. So we've put in a place around what that looks like now. Obviously, there needs to be decisions by this board shortly, as soon as possible, around what our short-term / long-term plan is for the ECC. You will see building by building updates as we proceed with the administrators. We're going to have an addendum for boilers, roofs, and elevators so that can be updated as the department updates those items without having to bring back a whole new document. Addendum on that. What else? We've also expanded the Walter Fitzgerald campus building because that was small in the current vision. Some of the bigger ticket items in terms of ultimately we're going to need to make a decision around size and scope of some of our upcoming renovations. So Dwight, Jennings, Osborne Hill. We're also looking at having a beyond the 10-year page that informs a future board, informs a future town body, informs a future public about those things that we see that will always recur. So whether that be turf fields or HVAC maintenance or roofs, etc. So having a kind of a beyond the 10-year mark look, and finally removing all references to dollars inside of this document and all reference to timing inside of this. This will become a pure, in our vision anyway, up to the board obviously, in the end, this will become a pure vision of, at this point in time, this is our best insight as a statement of need for each of the facilities. Dollars are not a part of it, timing is not a part of it. Those things will live on our waterfall and on our cash flow. So I don't know if I missed anything, big picture there. Definitely not going to go through line by line by this. Of course, welcome to any questions right now. But that's kind of the big takeaways of what we've accomplished. Look forward to meeting with the future administrators that will be invited to our next April couple of meetings, if they haven't already gotten that invitation, to hear from them. And then look forward to bringing to the board a rough draft in May at some point, not even a first read, literally just a draft, another check-in point with you and the public, should they attend and want to give public comment. And then a first read in June and a vote in June. So that therefore allows for the administration and Mr. Papa George to prepare over the summer for our documents needed in the fall for the capital planning workshop. So we have plenty of time to review those and be ready to go for Board of Finance. Mrs. Maxon-Kennelly.
Can you tell us who are the 6 schools that were represented to whom you've already spoken, so we know their feedback's already in here?
The 3 buildings that are due renovations upcoming, so Dwight, Jennings, and Osborne Hill. And the most recent renovations we had for lessons learned, Holland Hill, Riverfield, and Mill Hill.
And did they provide feedback which changed this? For example, there had been the question, obviously now we just got the update, but at one point there was a question on whether there was actual institutional value to having a steam room. Again, this is probably going back several years, but there really was a question of on how much is this an integral part. But anything like that you got as feedback which changed things?
No, I definitely I believe we heard steam room is super important. The newer things would be, we're going to get a more technical term. We're not going to put Zen Den in here, but there are spaces that are newer in education that maybe some of us didn't see in buildings 5-10 years ago. Looking to incorporate those appropriate spaces. again, maybe less small spaces than some of our buildings. Like Osborne had a ton of like small spaces that they were anticipated to get strike, make them bigger. And maybe more 1.0s or 0.5s versus 2.5s. There's a really interesting play between do you really need 0.25s or 0.5s versus 1.0s, and trying to really think about those spaces as multi-purpose. So that's been an interesting dialogue for sure. So Zendens, how administrators see today's education or going forward versus just, in 2015 when this was passed. But I'll let Mr. Mealy or Mr. Krasnov share anything in terms of changing things. Storage. I mean, a lot of the buildings that are older, closets became offices. So there are storage challenges. We heard that because the storage became an office. Adult bathrooms have been a consistent theme. I'm just going to leave it at that right now, but that has been a consistent theme as well. Yeah, I mean, obviously air is the buildings that have it now are like, yay, and right. So that's air has been important too. Mr. Lee, go ahead.
I think the biggest takeaway, couple of them besides the adult bathrooms, is the layout of the school is going to change. What they want these offices and smaller classrooms for. You just can't go into a building where it's okay, there's space, they're going to stick it there, we're going to stick one here. It's going to have to be a lot more uniform than we even thought. So even designing a school, that even though I always say you're designing a box and they have to pick it, you're actually going to have to do that. Now it's going to be very specific rooms for specific things.
Yeah, and to piggyback off that, like less walking between things if possible, between the faculty and the students, not needing to go so far to get to things. Larger spaces for sure was a big theme. As Ms. Jacobson said, the 0.25 seemed to only have minimal usage in the scheme of things. The K and first grade bathrooms, if possible, in the classrooms was a resounding yes going forward. And then just in terms of the ECC and CLC type classes, they do benefit from a full-size classroom because they are going to use it for different needs versus what we thought in the past.
You are going to see a huge shift. All the administrators see the shift from where we were 10 years ago, even the newer schools, to what actually is the next 10 years from today.
Be mindful of trajectories as we think about these things going forward, and just it's not just K-5 buildings anymore, right? It could be pre-K-5 buildings plus special programming. So before we built K-5 elementary schools, that's not really what we're building anymore. So, Mrs. Flynn.
Thank you to the Facilities Committee for all this work. This is a really minor question, but the only place that I see playgrounds highlighted is in the deficiencies at Dwight School. Do you have an anticipated place that you want playgrounds to live? Not that it's the biggest item, I just don't want it to not live somewhere.
Playgrounds don't live in this document. Playground have their own book.
Do we think right now that should be looped in to like where boilers and roofs are, or do you want to keep it as it is?
I can let Mr. Papa George speak to that, but there's a specific reason why you don't want to do that.
Thank you.
Apparently, yeah.
So really just the biggest reason for not looping it in as part of this is it is literally a 2-inch binder with specs and layouts, and it's would make this document quite big.
Thank you. That might be good to see at some point too, as we're working through it.
Mr. Papa George, if there's anything you want to lend to the conversation that I may have missed, or you feel that we're challenged with right now, or anything you feel like you need the board's input on, now's the moment till we come back.
No, I think we're moving in the right direction. We've been moving along, and we're going to continue to move.
Thank you. Thank you for helping. Mr. Asa. Oh, no. Okay. Anyone else? All right. So just wanted to bring this to you in case you have questions. Any input that you might have right now? If not, the intent is that we'll bring this back in May and in June. But of course, reach out with anything that comes up along the way. Doesn't have to wait for this meeting, okay? All right. Thank you, everyone. Okay. First reading of policy 4118.112, Title IX, prohibition of sex discrimination and sexual harassment in the workplace. Mrs. Maxon-Kennelly?
I'm almost embarrassed that Kanika is coming up. So this is just a title change to satisfy our CABE audit. That's all.
It's on this policy. This is a first read, so this will come back at the April meeting. Thank you, Mrs. Maxon-Kennelly. Anything you wanted? No? Okay. Any questions? Nope. Moving on. All right. All right. Approval of minutes. That the Board of Education approve the following minutes: March 12, 2024 BOE special meeting minutes and March 12, 2024 BOE regular meeting minutes. Mrs. Romaldi, seconded by Mr. Peterson. Pardon? Yeah, no, go ahead. Did you get it? Rinaldi and Jeff? What? Okay, so first, now it's on the floor, so do you have a motion to amend?
Yes, and I'm sorry for not the advance notice. I just realized this. I would like to make a motion to change the title of enclosure number 8 from draft special meeting notes to read special meeting minutes. Is there a second?
I have another amendment.
Yeah, you have to do one at a time. One at a time. Okay, so we have a motion, we have a second on that motion. Any discussion just on the amendment to change notes to minutes?
Can you point out where that is in the minutes?
Okay, so just the title of it, it currently says draft special meeting notes. And so to change that to actually read special meeting minutes. Thank you.
All right, let's take that to a vote. All in favor of the amendment?
Aye.
Mr. Issa, yes. Okay, motion passes amendly. Now back to the main motion as amended, which is both sets of minutes.
I have a motion to amend.
Yep.
The same one, enclosure number 8, called to order the special meeting, not regular meeting.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Krasnoff made an amendment. Mrs. Flynn seconds that amendment. Any discussion on that amendment? Public comment. Back to the board. All in favor of that amendment? Mr. Issa, okay. Motion passes unanimously. Back to the main motion as amended. All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Okay, superintendent report.
Thank you. Just a few items. I do want to mention again, it was talked about a few minutes ago, but over 500 student musicians participated in this year's townwide choral festival. The group was led by guest conductor, music educator Colton Blake. So I want to thank everyone, all the students and educators and staff members who made this a wonderful evening. This collaborative event is just one more reason why NAM Foundation named Fairfield Public Schools Best Communities for Music Education for its outstanding commitment to music education. Last week, Stratfield students rocked their socks and wore their craziest socks for World Down Syndrome Day 2024. I want to thank and also recognize Girl Scout Troop 30177. They, along with myself and Rachel, attended and visited classrooms to lead a special art activity to talk about students about this year's theme and the stereotypes. These are an amazing group of young women, quite mature for their age and also quite committed to changing the world. So it was a great event. It was recognized and a nice story written by the Connecticut Post. If everyone didn't see it, I will send you the link, but I think you have to be a Connecticut insider to read it. So we will take a look and send that out to you if you haven't seen it. I just was extremely impressed by these young girls and their commitment to ending World Down Syndrome, recognizing World Down Syndrome Day. So thank you to them and the leaders of the troop who also participated. This was Rachel, so I'm going to read it in the way she wrote it because she really has a way of words. Have you ever wondered what happens to uneaten food from our school lunchrooms? Fairfield Public Schools Green Team volunteers from Dwight, Burr, North Stratfield, and Mill Hill participate in food rescue, a program dedicated to eliminating hunger and food waste. If you look at our latest newsletter, you can learn more about the tremendous efforts made by our students and staff at these schools, and we're looking for expansion across all our schools in the future. Tomlinson students participated in recent regional competition for National History Day. Over the past several months, students worked under the advisement of the library media specialist, Ms. Krista Supernat, to create historical argument around the theme of turning points in history. Tomlinson Middle School student Arav Sahu placed first in this category, and he will be moving on to the state competition in Hartford on May 4th. Congratulations and good luck to the next round of competition. A couple of logistical items. We are having a parent information session on April 4th from 7 to 8 p.m. for our ECC program offerings for 24-25. You could check out our social media or our ECC webpage for details and to RSVP. I am happy to report that we are currently full to capacity in our full day typical pairs enrollment, and we have started a waiting list. So that is great news. And that's tremendous effort made by our ECC staff to get the word out and to get folks registered for next school year in our full day programming. So that is good news. A couple of items, I think it was mentioned, we will be sending out a communication regarding April 8th and the anticipated solar eclipse. We will be giving information out not only to our staff, but our families. As you heard, some of our schools are planning events at our high school and middle schools for students to go out and view it with specialized solar glasses that they've purchased. We are encouraging all our elementary schools, some have already begun, others will, in purchasing the solar glasses as well in order to prevent any harm and permanent retina damage to their eyes. We have spoken as a group in Southern Fairfield County because there was some discussion about possibly dismissing early, but that is not going to be something that any other districts are doing. I think the glasses have been the overwhelming strategy in terms of combating the possible damages. It's supposed to start around 2:15 p.m. and at the height of it, it will be around elementary dismissal. So this information will be important to get out to parents if they want to make any decisions regarding picking up their children early. That will be a personal decision. We also have an update regarding the budget. We were informed that our pension contribution to the town for the those that were grandfathered into the old pension system has an increase for next year that we were not made aware of until last week by our folks on the town side of a little over $200,000. So we're hopeful and working. Courtney's going to work with Frank on the town side and with the Board of Finance to request that they increase our budget to cover the unanticipated increase to the pension contribution from the board side. This is usually something that we would probably be more made aware of earlier in the budget process. Unfortunately, we were just notified a few days ago. And last but not least, I received an interesting letter from two students at Mill Hill School that I thought you would like to hear read to you. And this is, well, no, it's a great letter from Taylor Trombetta and Gemma Carpentieri. So it's why Miss Ang needs a raise. And I'm reading this because I think it's important for us to understand how students recognize the incredible care and effort that their teachers put in. This is a first-year teacher. So I'm going to read the letter because for them to take the time and send this out to me, I think speaks volumes about the incredible work Miss Eng is doing over at Mill Hill School. So ding, 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 there's the school bell and we are walking to class to see the most wonderful teacher ever. Her name is Miss Eng and she needs a raise. These are the reasons she needs a raise. Miss Eng is doing work on her free time. She keeps us safe and takes good care of us. She also helps us learn and pushes us to be our best. The first reason Miss Eng needs a raise is because she works on the weekend during her free time. She makes us pretty slides on the smartboard. She also corrects our homework and makes us new ones. She also writes us a newsletter every week. Another reason she needs a raise is because she keeps us safe and takes good care of us. When we have fire drills, she keeps us safe and counts us to make sure we were all here. When we get hurt, Miss Eng takes us to the nurse. The last reason Miss Eng needs a raise is because she helps us learn and pushes us to do our best. She gives us tools and strategies. She helps us read and write and says positive words. If you are thinking about giving out raises, it should be to Miss Eng. These are the reasons why Miss Eng should get a raise. She does work on the weekends. She keeps us safe and she takes care of us and teaches us and pushes us to do our very best.
I knew you were going to go there.
Well, Miss Eng is also teaching writing as well.
Essay. Okay. Well, thank you for reading us that letter. That was lovely. Our committee is on reports. Mrs. Flynn. Oh, sorry.
Oh, hold on. I have a question.
Just ask, is our students getting a reply?
The students are going to get a reply because Miss Eng is getting a raise because we approved the new collective bargaining agreement.
Good news for you, buddy.
I just thought for them to really recognize, I mean, this is a first-year teacher. I'm sure in that first year, I can just think back a few years ago when I was a first-year educator, just the tremendous amount of time and effort that you put in, and you really just don't know if you're having any impact. Some days, I'm sure Miss Eng goes home and cries. It's very difficult, but I think to know that your students recognize the amount of time, effort, and care that you put into their lives is something that should be recognized district-wide and publicly.
John, I think Nick has a comment.
Mr. Asa?
Yeah, I just have a quick question, Mr. Testani, regarding the solar glasses. Can you just confirm, I'm not sure if I heard correctly, is the district purchasing these for the elementary dismissal, or are PTAs being relied on to fund this?
No, the schools have been using their school funds to purchase them, so we're going to continue in that fashion. But if the PTAs would like to step up and reimburse the schools, we're more than happy for the efforts by the PTA. But no, the schools are.
Thank you.
Mrs. Flynn. Just a few quick updates from the PTA Council. So the PTA Council meeting that was scheduled for tomorrow evening has been moved to April 2nd at 7:30 p.m. in the Board of Ed conference room, where we're currently sitting. And then just two program notes from them. The PTA Council Odyssey of the Mind team, which represents 4 elementary schools, Holland Hill, Mill Hill. What? Seriously, what? This was the update I got from PTA Council. Oh, I'm just doing the PTA Council. Okay. Mill Hill, Osborne, and Riverfield won first place at state level and is heading to World Finals at Iowa State University in May. They will represent both Fairfield and Connecticut, but they need the community's help to get there. So please look out for opportunities to help. Congratulations to all the other Fairfield teams across who participated in Odyssey of the Mind. And I also got an update about Wait Till 8th. Wait Until 8th is a community of support for parents who have chosen to delay giving their kids a smartphone until at least the end of 8th grade. This pledge does not include watches or simple texting devices that don't have access to social media and the internet. On Monday, February 12th, Burr Idea launched the Wait Till 8th pledge in Fairfield. Just a week later, the second grade cohort at Burr Elementary became the first grade and school in the district to activate the Wait Till 8th pledge. Since then, we've had over 400 families in the district across all our elementary schools and some of our middle schools who have signed the pledge. This past Friday, Osborne Hill Elementary became the first school in the district to have all Wait Till 8th pledges across every single grade activated. This initiative is currently being championed by the PTA Idea Committee, and there will be updates and further information at all PTA Council meetings. Thank you. If there's any questions, I'll try or send you in the right direction to field them.
Thank you. Mr. Lee.
Are we question? Just an update, SEPTA tomorrow night at McKinley at 7:30. For the HVAC IAQ, nothing to report except that the chairman, Mr. Becker, has resigned. The RTM did approve another member to join the board, and the new chairman, his name is Jeffrey. I'm not going to slaughter his last name in public record. So that's the only changes, and we thank Mr. Becker.
Oh, sorry, Mrs. Maxon Kelly.
Just from Parks and Rec, a update for Roger Ludlow Middle School fields, that the turf field is in the, it's taking a very long time. It's still in the permitting phase. It's with engineering. Once it finally gets out of there, it will go to purchasing and only then finally out to bid. But this is taking a very long time, but just wanted to update.
I mean, this was approved like 3 years ago. What is taking so long? The engineering department? The engineering department is holding up our turf field. You know what to do, people. Wow. Okay. Anyone else? Mr. Peterson.
Yeah, just very quickly, Special Projects Building Committee was canceled yesterday. Next Finance Committee meeting is on next Wednesday on the 3rd. But I did want to say that the Board of Finance Public Budget Forum is coming up this weekend on Saturday on the 30th. But it's at Ward. It's been at Ludlow for many years. I don't know if the last time it was not at Ludlow, but it's at Ward at 9:30 a.m. on Saturday. So if you want to come out and advocate for the budget,
It's the place to be, Saturday morning. Bring your coffee. Thank you for announcing that. I had forgotten about that. Thank you for bringing that up. Anyone else? All right, I'll give a quick legislative update. I'm not going to get into details right now, but I have been monitoring. I've also reached out to staff when I felt it was necessary to get some input on possible legislation impacting us. Know that I have watched things. I've submitted my own testimony on a few things. If anyone has any specific questions, I'm happy to get into them, but there are several things in the works. Don't know if they'll pass yet, but we are watching. Okay? So go ahead.
Anything that you would consider positive for Fairfield? Loaded question, I know.
Let's see. Well, obviously that we all know that there's the racial imbalance study law that's being proposed that would pause implementation. So that is a proposal. Unfortunately for our timing, we won't know about that until May, and then it could take another, who knows how long for a governor to sign it. So I think we're still going to have to proceed on our timeline, so to speak, regardless of that endeavor, so that we're not stuck if it doesn't go anywhere. Yeah, I think there's some good things, but there's also some things that I have, concerns about at this point. But we'll continue to work through them. Anyone else? No? All right. Is that it? Is it motion to adjourn? Okay, motion to adjourn. Oh, public comment. All right, Mr. Krasnoff, seconded by Mr. Lee. All in favor? Good night, everyone. Good night, Mr. Asa. Thank you for calling in.
Good night. Thank you.
Bye. Good night, everyone.